All right, welcome in everybody to this Central Committee stream with your host Mike from PA. We are live once again. Good morning, comrades, friends. Welcome on in. Hope you're doing well. Oh, default. What? Default? What? Yeah. Is that better? Audio chat or no? No difference. Okay. All right. Welcome on in to this Central Committee stream with your host Mike from PA. We are live once again. What a day we have today on the Central Committee stream. Holy shit. The Mike was right, Mike was vindicated tour continues. Wildfires in Canada and Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta. Oh, nice. Elon Musk has basically been fired. And he's leaving the White House with his tail between his legs. The polls have come out about abundance versus populism. Spoiler alert. Democratic voters prefer populism over abundance. Spoiler alert. Abundance is dog shit. And Israeli officials are now agreeing that Israel is a war crime country. I mean... Odds are that me, Hassan, Tectone, Frogan, Denims, and Central Committee cost 90% of PR. There's not one PR problem I've ever caused for Twitch. Same thing with Denims. Like, what are you talking about? Tectone is a rapist, and you're a slug. Also, the idea of trying to get himself banned off of the website is hilarious. Holy shit. Just quit, man. Just do it. Like, if you want to do it, just do it. Just do it. Just do it. Just quit. Like, you have... By the way, notice how he's doing this now that Trump support is cratering. Oopsie. Did you overplay your Trump hand? Oopsie. Did you overplay it, you fucking dimwit? Oopsie. Is everybody quitting OTK? Oopsie, you fucking dope. Sound muted on tabs, huh? Wait, what the? Hold on. Oh, I broke something. I broke something. Okay, never mind.
Rogan and Denims, and that's what I would do.
Thank you.
If I wanted to optimize ad revenue, you know what I would do? I'd ban politics. That's what I'd do. Just ban it. The odds are that me and Hassan and Tectone and Frogan and Denims and Central Committee cause 90% of the PR problems on the entire website.
The only PR problems that are created for Twitch right now, literally, are the harassment, the advertiser slander defamation program of Dan Saltzman. But here's the thing. Twitch doesn't even sell ads. This is the thing that's funny. Twitch doesn't even sell ads. Like, it is very hard to buy ads on Twitch, you dumb fuck. Most of the time, I'm going to tell you how it really works. Companies just buy ads with Amazon and get their ads on all of Amazon's video products as a bundle. And Twitch is part of that bundle. What if they actually wanted to maximize ads? What they would do? First of all, stuff that all of us say, even Tectone, even Asmongold, except for his genocide shit when he was genocide supporting. What we say is mild compared to what goes on YouTube every single day, or what goes on TikTok every single day. You're such a fucking dope. You're a dumb shit. No one gives a fuck. And the only problem that we have is Twitch should honestly ban you. Twitch should make a rule. If a streamer tries to target Twitch's advertising, they get banned. Like, it's not that complicated. If they really had a concern, they would just ban you for trying to undermine the site's revenue. And which is a pretty fair rule. If you want to use the website to go and lead a doxing campaign to stalk Twitch staff, should probably get you banned for that. Jesus Christ. I mean, if Twitch actually wanted to maximize advertising revenue, here's an idea. Sell ads. Here's an actual idea. How about people could buy ads on Twitch? That might be a way of maximizing ad revenue. How about you have people be able to buy ads on Twitch? If you want to buy ads on Twitch, you have to go through the fucking, like, it is honestly like Buying ads on Twitch is like buying a fucking radio ad. It's that fucking antiquated. Asmon just wants to silence the opposition. He doesn't. Well, yeah, he's like, oh, the reason why he's saying they should ban me is because he's too much of a coward to just be like, I believe in fascism and I think that my viewpoint should be allowed to be said and you're not allowed to criticize me. Oh, here's why he believes Twitch would never ban politics. Oh, damn. Oh no. The reason they can't draw the line is they're ideologically captured by California politics. Then quit the website, bitch. Quit the website, bitch. By the way, 2,000 likes. Oof. In almost 24 hours, 2,000 likes. 24 hours and only 2K likes. Oof. 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 No one gives a shit. Nobody gives a shit. This is the actual news. 2.1K likes. And it was posted 3 hours ago.
Why would I don't wear deodorant. The last time I wore deodorant is whenever I thought I could wear Axe body spray and girls would like me. I was like 14. I don't wear fucking deodorant. You know why? You know why I don't need deodorant? Because it's not.
Axe body spray isn't deodorant. It's just really cheap cologne. This guy was stinky twice.
No, I don't need it because I'm not fat. Fat people need deodorant because they smell bad because all the Cheetos are coming through their skin.
I legitimately think that you should be allowed to say whatever you want about Asmongold, honestly. Like, the guy has roaches crawling on him and he's calling fat people stinky.
No, absolutely not. You got the grease going through. That doesn't happen with me. That's not like me at all, bro. Like, why would I
you know, this is just bait to make people like. Asmongold figured out that being the most disgusting streamer on Twitch, which is tough. That's a high bar. It is tough to be the most disgusting person on Twitch. He figured out that if he was the most disgusting person on Twitch, he would get engagement. Holy shit. All right, let's go back to make fun of... My favorite thing to do is look at these people and then just talk about politics. And I know for a fact they will never, ever, ever, ever engage with my politics because they know I'm right. And that is ultimately the most gratifying thing, is they know, like, you know, Ethan Klein, Destiny, Asmongold, they're too cowardly to talk about the politics. No, man, he wants to Twitch to ban politics because he can't take the heat, and he wants someone else to be the reason he backs down and shifts topic. He's shifting topic because Donald Trump is falling off.
If I wanted to optimize ad revenue, you know what I would do? I'd ban politics. That's what I'd do.
You consider me political because I wear a hijab. I'm not like you, and I do not make political content anywhere, but typing a tweet once in a while. The thing about this is, and I know Frogan knows this, is that there's no way to be a visible minority and not be politicized in America. So unless you conform completely to society's expectations and you hide your identity and you pass, you're going to be politicized. And it's not your, like, the act of wearing a hijab in America is a political act. It is an act of defiance. It is an act of, I am going to wear this, representing my heritage, representing my culture. And you know, Frogan has talked about this before, so I'm not saying anything that Frogan doesn't already know and Frogan completely agrees with. But I think this point is really important to make because, like, notice how she became politicized by people like Asmongold because she is visibly Muslim. And that is what they use to attack her. Hi, Mike. I'm from PA too. Nice. Welcome in, buddy. Vote for me if you hate minorities and women. I want to see mainstream media talking about Asmongold. We need to get some Asmongold coverage. I'm pondering this. I want to see some normie reactions to Asmongold. I want to see some normie reactions to Asmongold, right? Like, we need to do that. We need normie reactions of Asmongold. Oh my God. And like, we need to feed them all the clips. Like, he hasn't taken a shower in a month. Like, his yellowed t-shirts, the cockroaches crawling on him, his like house tours. We need to get together Can we get together a package of all of the most repulsive Asmongold clips? And maybe we could get like, we could get somebody to cover the new like political right, the fourth right. I would also like to see a dueling video where it's like the online left and it's represented by Hasan, right? And he's pumping iron and he's dating, dating supermodels. And then you have the right is represented by Asmongold and he's crawling around in filth. Him and his followers are being studied. The mental well-being of involuntary celibates. Oh no, dude.
No, his aim is ass, but that's not it.
Roach flying at me. Give me a minute. Where'd he go? Oh shit!
Dude has stage hazards.
He's on my
in his
belly.
room.
Look at him. He's right there. Oh god! Get him out of me. What are you doing, bro? Get out.
It's a roach.
Go in the garbage can. I'm gonna take him.
He threw the roach in the garbage can and kept going.
Give me a minute. I got him.
Oh, he's holding it still. That's a real guy. Show this Asmon 3. Okay, dude. Christ.
Wait, hold on, bro. But dog, this is why I said, like, sometimes, dude, I gotta protect my peace, man, because not only is this because here's the thing. I know that there are people who live like this, just regular human beings. Like, the idea of that isn't too crazy,
shocking,
right?
Yeah.
It's just the fact that this is a guy.
This is what his room looks like. I think is this before he cleaned it? He did a whole thing. He got banned for saying Palestinians are an inferior culture that deserves to be. He got banned for like 14 days for that. Okay. Yo. And after he got banned, he was like, "I'm really sorry. I shouldn't have said that. I'm gonna learn. I learned my lesson. I'm cleaning my house." And it was like a big deal.
Oh,
it went viral because he said he's cleaning his house, bro.
But he didn't though. Like, I don't think Asmongold has ever really lived in a clean house. Like, I actually don't think Asmongold knows what living in a clean house or environment is like. I mean, outside of maybe going to hotels once in a while, I don't think he's actually been, or maybe visiting someone else's house. Like, I don't think he's ever actually occupied a space that was his own that was clean. Like, I don't think his mom ever taught him how to like clean a room, really. That's sad. Okay, making fun of Destiny is really fun, so let's do that. Norman Finkelstein was having an interview. This was posted like just now, and he made fun of Destiny, so it's funny to do it again.
Coming up pariah state. I wanted to actually ask you about the recent statement made by Yoav Golan, who is the Israel Democratic Party.
Only problem, inferior cultures, communist and Muslims, Nazi gold. Huh? Are you trying to be pro-Nazi? You're too incoherent. What country are you from? Con et wolves, man. Huh. I'm trying to figure out what country you could be, because you're not American.
Leader. He had some interesting statements that he made on Tuesday on Israeli public radio. And Yair Golan is not just Israel's Democratic Party leader. He's also a reserve major general in the IDF and, of course, a former soldier and commander.
Israel is on its way to becoming a pariah state among nations, like South Africa was, if we don't return to acting like a sane country. And a sane country does not wage war against civilians, does not kill babies as a hobby, and does not give itself the aim of expelling populations.
What are your thoughts on this statement, this admission from an Israeli that the IDF kills children?
Well, my first reaction is a very idiosyncratic one. I was hoping somebody would pull that clip and juxtapose it next to that thing called Destiny and Benny Morris when I was in the debate with them.
And you don't understand.
For a historian, I don't want to understand Israeli society. If you want to know the truth, I don't want to. I don't want to get inside their heads.
That's the problem.
90% of
a good historian tries to get into the heads of
there's a limit.
the various protagonists.
There's a limit. When 90% of Israelis think that Israel's using enough or too little force in Gaza, I don't want to get inside that head. 40% think that Israel is using insufficient force in Gaza. I don't want to get inside that head. I don't want to get inside the head of people who think they're using insufficient force
Historians
against
must
a population,
understand.
against a population, half of which is children. I don't want to get inside that head.
No, you don't know.
I know,
pilots.
God.
They believe that they are killing Hamasniks. They're given certain
I'm sure they believe
objectives,
it.
and
I'm
that's
sure
what
they
attack.
believe it.
Simple as
Every
that.
time they target a kid, I'm sure they believe it's Hamas. And the issue came up of whether Israel kills children. And they laughed off the whole idea, said it's totally crazy. And I began to give examples. And each example they sought to refute. And then I gave what seemed to me the most compelling example, which was the March 2018 March of Return in Gaza. Great March of Return, it was called. The UN report, which was very thorough, ran to 250 pages, single-spaced. It said that Israel was targeting children, targeting journalists, targeting medics, targeting disabled people. When it didn't outright kill them, it was targeting them at the kneecap to give them life-changing injuries.
Disabilities, yeah.
And all of it was exhaustively documented.
He didn't call him a brilliant idiot. He called him like, fuck, what was the meme? Fuck, what was the meme? Fantastic moron. Thank you. He would never use the word brilliant.
And that thing called destiny, he was very agitated at the claim. Benny Morris tried to distance himself, the Israeli historian. He tried to distance himself from what the March 2018, but they were both very adamant. So there was a certain relief, you might call it, on my part, when the Israeli official or opposition party official, he said, but everybody knows Israel targets the children. You might recall that Pharaoh Sidwa, the doctor who was in Gaza, he and I think it was something like 60, you can correct me, 60 other doctors and medical personnel, they provided enough evidence to convince the New York Times that children were being targeted in the head and in the chest. And then there was an uproar when the Times published that. And then the Times had no choice. It said, look, we looked at the x-rays. We couldn't reach another conclusion. So obviously it strengthens the case when this person says it, but it's nothing new under the sun. What happened in Gaza since October 2023, there's nothing new in what it's doing. What's different is the quantity. And the cliche is at some point quantity turns into quality. So you might murder an individual, but when it becomes 100 individuals, the murder becomes a massacre. And if the 100 individuals turns into 1,000 individuals, it becomes a crime against humanity. And if the 1,000 individuals turns into 1,000,000, it becomes a genocide. So at some point, quantity turns into something qualitatively different. But there's nothing new in the
this is the most basic part of this dispute, is that a lot of the people who are persuaded by Ethan Klein or Destiny, they just simply don't. This is too complicated of a thought for them. And like, one of the things is, in reality, there are a lot of people who do not have healthy brains or develop. Let's just be honest. It's time for us to take a minute of honesty for a second. I was very lucky in my life. My parents loved me. They read to me. They took me to libraries and bookstores. They encouraged me academically. They cared about how I performed academically. I read books voraciously my entire childhood. I learned, I got higher education. I got higher education. I got a Juris Doctorate. I have an undergraduate degree. I completed my studies, and I kept learning throughout life. I studied policy papers and wrote policy memorandums. and consulted on legislation and worked to develop policy positions for politics. So I, studying law, studying these things, getting involved intellectually, I am somebody who is just qualitatively different than the vast majority of people when it comes to politics. Doesn't mean I'm superior. It just means I've spent the time. I've done the reading. I've done the homework, right? And there's a lot of people who have never read a book. I read my first book when I was like literally 4. I read my first novel when actual adult novel when I was like 6. Okay? I've always been precocious. I've always been academically gifted. All right? The idea that I can make it to 30 something without reading a fucking book is insane. I was cleaning out couch cushions to get money to buy books when I was a kid, and not like baby cook books like, Goosebumps, which I liked. I'm not saying I never read any Goosebumps. I'm talking about real adult fiction, not young adult fiction, not Green Eggs and Ham, actual books for adults. And it's okay. That doesn't make me cool or anything. It's just the way I was. I was precocious. Probably a symptom of autism, quite frankly. But when we talk like this, like when we use words, when I choose to describe something, or I use a word, or I use a concept, I understand it. And I feel like what Finkelstein just did to explain the difference between a murder and a massacre and a crime against humanity and a genocide is fundamentally a logic chain that is too complicated for a lot of Destiny's fans. They are actually stupid people, like legitimately stupid people. I think we kind of skip over that in our political communication. I think the worst part of politics is a lot of politics discourse is full of people like me who read books as children and continue to read books. You're weird. You're a weird guy. Many people have only written a couple books their entire life. Okay? And there's not enough politics that is accessible. And that's why I like Bernie Sanders' campaign so much, because it was accessible without being paternalistic. It was accessible without looking down or condescending to people. And it was effective. It was strong. It was policy that was good. People call it populist, but it was populist not because the ideas couldn't stand up to scrutiny. It's populist because it rejects the current elites who will not implement the best founded academically policies because they are corrupted in favor of elite interest. Bernie Sanders populism is policies that help the people, for the people, against the interest of the elites who have betrayed us. Where right-wing populism is anti-intellectualism. It is it's dogmatic. It is demagoguery. That is the right populism. It is not policy that actually helps the people or checks elites, but rather it uses the prejudices and the cognitive errors to manipulate the masses and attack learning itself. I'm 52 and never read a book, not proud of it. I've met here, by the way, if reading text is hard for you, it doesn't mean you're stupid. There are other ways of learning, right? This is what true intelligence is. True intelligence is self-knowledge and maximizing what you have. So say you have a hard time focusing on reading a book. There are audiobooks. There are discussions about books or guided readings of books where like a professor will sit down with you and go through the chapters and discuss them, and break it down for you. Like, you don't always have to do things on your own. In fact, there are all sorts of structures and guides. There can be summaries to help you get through it. There could be annotated versions. There's all sorts of strategies that you can get through. It's a matter of recognizing what is good for me and then executing that. A lot of writers dictate, right? Like, a lot of writers, they sit down at a blank page and they just talk at it and they dictate stuff. And then they go back and edit. Right? And then they go back and write because writing off the blank page is hard. A lot of lawyers dictate. A lot of doctors dictate because the blank page is hard for them, but they figured out an alternative way to get started and then go back. How could I keep my attention even after the initial enthusiasm? This is where my ADHD brain I can't help you, because for me, I just read the whole thing in one sitting, or I read it until I fall asleep. Like, it is what it is. Open Dyslexic is a font that helps those with dyslexia parse text a little easier. Oh, that's interesting.
Really, tactics. That to me is, for anybody who studied it, nothing new under the sun. Or I should say, nothing new under the Israeli sun.
Just the newsworthiness of it is that a opposition party leader is admitting it.
Yeah, and it was newsworthy that he used the word as a hobby.
Right.
As in, not only do they not experience any remorse, but what's a hobby?
Fun.
Listen up, guys. A hobby is something you do for fun.
Right.
And that's exactly true. That's Israel. That's why, in my opinion, I'll give you just a brief preview, and you can do with it as you like. On June 9th, I will be in a public presentation with Dr. Cornel West and the former executive director of the ACLU. Her name is Nadine Strassen, a very impressive woman by any reckoning, a very impressive woman. And I will ask the question in good faith, not as a provocation. I will ask the question. The title of the event is Cancel Culture, Freedom of Speech in Gaza. And we're going to talk or focus, I hope, on the events on the college campuses and how they bear on the issue of freedom of speech. Now, if you read the Harvard reports on this alleged anti-Semitism at Harvard and so forth, everyone talks about the need for inclusion and what's called pluralism, which is, in Rodney King's famous line, "Can't we all get along?" And the job of a college, they say, the job of a college is people from diverse backgrounds, diverse opinions, contrary opinions, strongly felt opinions. Can't we all get along? Can't we be inclusive? Can't we cultivate a culture of pluralism? And as a general directive, that sounds to me right. But I do think, since the Harvard report and others have focused on the Israeli Jewish students who feel shunned and are being shunned, they don't only feel it, it's a fact, they're being shunned. My view is the default setting is anybody coming out of Gaza is a war criminal. The default setting is it's not innocent until proven guilty. You are a participant. You are a cog in the machine of genocide. And that being the case, do we have a responsibility to make that student feel inclusive? Does everybody have a responsibility to be inclusive of that person? I have to say, I have very mixed feelings about that. If one of those persons who served in Gaza came to me during office hours, I would have very mixed feelings.
I would have one feeling. If I met someone who served in Gaza, I would have one feeling and one feeling only. There would be no mixed. Keepo, smile if you agree. How do I feel about your view count declining now that you've become a drama stream mentioning Ethan every day? Hasan, Harvard PhD on CNN. Finkelstein dunks on Destiny again. Poll, Democratic voters prefer populism to abundance. Elon fired by Trump. Where's Ethan? I don't see no Ethan Klein. Also, it is 1 hour into the stream. I want to help you. I don't know where you people get your information from, but I have never been more successful in my career than I am now. Like, this is how it works. You see these here's how these streams work. Just go to the streams. This is how they work. Here it is. Okay, I started the stream at 12:15, so 3:15 would be 1 hour in. 3,000. That's just how it goes. That's how it goes. Literally, that's how it goes. This is normal. This is how it goes. I'm at 3,000 yesterday from an hour in. I'm an hour in, and it's, by the way, it's earlier in the day too. So this is actually better. The reason why I answer those people is because it's like, bro, it is 8 a.m. and I have 3,000 people here. Like, what the fuck are you talking about, man? To talk about far left politics at 8 a.m. I have 3,000 people here. Like, god damn, dude. I honestly, can I say my haters are my biggest fans? Can I just say that? Like, my haters are my biggest fans, and I want to thank you. It's like actually insane. They're like, I expect your far left stream to have like hundreds of thousands of people watching it at 8 a.m. I can't believe how much you followed off. Why don't you compare yourself to like the biggest mainstream corporate sponsored streamers who never talk about controversial topics from a position that is suppressed by the American government? How come you can't compare to? And by the way, I do. That's the thing that's funny. I do compare to those people. That's the thing that's insane. Like that's the thing that's actually crazy. I have more viewers than those people. What does abundance mean in this case? There is a movement by the neoliberals to rebrand neoliberalism abundance, and all of their ideas were tested in a poll against populist stuff, and populism was massively more popular. Anyway, let's finish the Destiny thing and then we'll talk about it.
About trying to make
By the way, is there even really anything more to say about Ethan Klein? Like, he got made fun of by one of the most up-and-coming streamers on Twitch and creators on TikTok. Like, no one gives a shit about him. His supporters are literal Nazis and genocidal maniacs. His position is getting absolutely disproven as we speak, as Israeli prime ministers come out and say they're committing war crimes and crime against humanity. Like, former Israeli prime ministers are saying they're committing war crimes and crimes against humanity. The Europeans are starting to call them genocidal. I've just been proven completely right and vindicated completely with my position. Like, what are you even talking about? What are you talking about? Like, what are you even on?
Or her feel inclusive.
Did you see the paraglider that got sucked up to 8,000 meters in China? That could happen if you went on to a thermal. Why didn't he fly out of the thermal? I'm a glider pilot, so I've ridden thermals before. I would be surprised for a paraglider to get pushed that high, but pretty cold up there. You would be dead. You would be super dead. Did he die? Oh, he rode a thunder. Oh no. Oh no, he's dead, isn't he? He lived? How? Is there video or is he just making it up? Mike, did you watch the season finale of The Rehearsal? Okay, I'm learning about Thunderhead Guy, but my answer to Rehearsal is Nathan Fielder is such an artist that it literally makes me feel a certain type of way that I don't like. And I'm not saying that I'm having bad feelings. The point, that's actually not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I'm laughing the entire time, but it's like you are revealing your own flaws by laughing at it. Do you know what I mean? Like, to find it funny is like kind of showing that you're fucked up. Oh no. How did he not die? Was he from like a mountainous region? Like, what the fuck? I mean, I guess he could have just passed out and then woke back up, right? I mean, that's like, I don't know, dude. I don't find that to be reliable enough.
If the genocide is a national project,
okay, let's go back to the serious shit.
Then everybody has
got distracted by the person trying to say I'm falling off. Look, I just like King Gothalion, one of the original Twitch streamers. 2K, 39 DAF, 2.IK, S-Fand, doing a joint stream. I'm going to pass him any second now. It's like at a certain point, like, what are you even talking about? What are you talking about? How is your brain like that? It blows my mind. Like, you came in here to try to say that I'm falling off, and it's like, what are you talking about? What are you on?
Bear his or her share of culpability for participation in that project. So I have very mixed feelings about the cool now. And if you look at, there were two reports issued by Harvard, one a task force on anti-Semitism and another a task force on anti-Arab, anti-Palestinian, anti-Muslim attacks. But one thing the two reports had in common is at the end, they talked about the need for inclusion and the need for pluralism and the need for figuring out how we can all get along. Well, dare I say, I don't want to get along with a genocidal murderer. I really don't. For me, it's a complete betrayal of my family history, my legacy. If most of the Germans who served during World War II, they got off for a very simple reason. That too was a national project. And if you were to prosecute everybody, you'd have a whole country in jail. So they had to be very selective in who they prosecuted. You take the worst guard in the camp in Majdanek, where my mother was there. Her name was Brigida. She was, by reputation, the worst. Everybody was terrified of her. So she went through the trial in Majdanek. It was the charge. It was a trial of the guards from Majdanek. It was held in Dusseldorf in the late 1970s. And my mother testified at the trial. When the testimony...
By the way, chat, why did it take to the 70s to prosecute these people? Because originally, if you cared about the Holocaust, you were considered to be a communist sympathizer. All the former Nazis ran to the U.S. and U.S. lines so that they could immediately engage in anti-communism. So after FDR died, the idea of any kind of rapprochement between the East and the West ended with FDR, right? And it was left, we had Dulles brothers and we had Truman and we had Churchill, virulent anti-communists. And so the Nazis immediately went into the West German government and NATO. And so from the 40s till the 70s, if you were like the Holocaust was some like world historic crime, you were either Jewish or you were a socialist. I mean, the Soviet Union liberated all but, I would say, 4 of the camps and all of the death camps. Why? Because they were all in Poland. Or, you know what I mean? Like almost all the death camps were in Poland or in non-German territory. There were old concentration camps. The oldest concentration camps were in Germany, but those were not typically death camps or extermination camps. Those were camps that were largely for, guess who? Communists and political dissidents and queers and stuff like that. Like the extermination camps were oftentimes, they were all liberated by the Soviets. The Holocaust was ended by the Soviet Union, not the Allies. The Soviet Union ended the Holocaust. And so there was, after Israel geopolitically became a cat's paw for the West, it became something that was there to counterbalance pan-Arab nationalism, which was seen as a threat by the West, pan-Arab nationalism being secular and left-wing and likely to align with the Soviet bloc. So in order to counter pan-Arab nationalism, in order to counter secular nationalist movements within the Arab world, Israel and Islamism were supported by the US and the West. And that's when, oh yeah, the Holocaust is terrible. Israel is the home of the Jews they are a uniquely oppressed people. That's when that narrative started. There was, and when Israel first founded, a lot of the people who went to Israel claimed to be left-wing Jews, right? There was liberal Zionists who claim, or bi-nationalists as they were called. So there was this kind of like smokescreen of naivete that there would be some sort of like settlement where the indigenous population would learn to live with the Jewish immigrant. All of that is horseshit. It was fake from the beginning. The project was always a settler colonial Zionist exterminationist project. But there was at least a smokescreen and belief and possibility of that. Where are you getting this information? History. Knowing my history. NATO was founded by Nazis. Here in Austria, we had a Nazi as our president as recently as the early 90s. Yes, all the Nazis. What's really interesting, if you look at Austria, there's a party called the FPO, the Freedom Party of Austria. They're the far right party, but they were founded right after World War II. Or wait a minute. Was it the... Yeah, okay, here it is. Its first leader, Anton Rheinthaler, was a former Nazi functionary and SS officer. But the FPO did not advocate far-right policies and presented itself as a centrist party. So basically, after World War II, all the Nazis said, oh, I'm not a Nazi, I'm a centrist, anti-communist. Sound familiar? Anyway, point I'm trying to make is the idea that you have to kill Hamas, all of Hamas's members, even civilians, because of the Holocaust is insane. Because as Finkelstein is pointing out, the Nazis that ran the death camps weren't even punished.
Testimony of her and many others was quite vivid when it came to Birgitta. So Birgitta gets 7 years in jail, or 7.5 years in jail. Okay? She gets out of jail. She could have attended night school. I could have taught her. Do I want her to feel inclusive? Do I want to create an environment of inclusiveness? Not really. Not really. So when the Jewish students talk about being shunned, and in particular the Israeli Jewish students talk about being shunned in places like Colombia or elsewhere, I think shunning them is the morally correct thing to do.
Shunning is the morally correct thing to do. Shunning people like Ethan Klein is the morally correct thing to do. Has Ethan Klein covered the fact that centrist Israelis are now saying it's a genocide? Is he coming out and covering that? Is Hila talking about it?
We're left with no choice but to speak up.
Okay, we're gonna watch the Norman Finkelstein versus Benny Morris debate. Piers Morgan has finally decided that it is a genocide. I don't know if you guys heard this, but Piers Morgan has now come out and said it's a genocide. I don't know if you heard about this. And a lot of centrists are starting to come out and say it's a genocide, by the way. Like, a lot of people are starting to come out. The only people who are not saying it's a genocide are American centrists. But centrists throughout the world are starting to come out and say it's a genocide. It's actually kind of interesting. We just had the German, right-wing German chancellor came out and said it's crimes against humanity. And he doesn't see a legitimate reason for what Israel's doing. The German conservative prime minister is saying it. It's like, it's over.
Das ist eine Liste von Verurteilungen von FPÖ-Funktionären. Nicht nur der Herr Kickl, sondern FPÖ-Funktionären, die wir da haben. Diese Liste, ja, ich kann sie Ihnen zeigen. Über 1,80 Meter.
These are all the right-wing politicians or people who were in Austria who got convicted of corruption.
Groß diese Liste, die wir da haben. Das sind nur Verurteilungen von FPÖ-Funktionären auf allen Ebenen, die wir erlebt haben. Und das drückt aus, dass ihnen auch der demokratische Rechtsstaat in der Gesamtpartei nichts wert ist. Verhetzungen, Wiederbetätigung, Korruption, vieles aber verurteilt. Und ich stelle mir jetzt schon schützend vor einen Grundpfeiler dieser Republik, das ist die unabhängige Justiz. Und ich bin froh, dass Sie die Maske fallen haben lassen.
That's pretty funny. That's a good... See, this is how you debate. Props.
Head injuries, amputations, some are...
Although Piers Morgan is a total twat, he's a good barometer for the opinions of reactionaries. At least we know the tide is turning. No, of course it is. Of course it's turning. That's great. But the people of Gaza are starving. And like, listen, I've said what I can say. I know what I need to do. You know what you need to do. But the reality is that our organizing, our voices, our communities are turning the tide. And we're having to fight the American state. We're having to fight Israeli state and all of their spies and all of their agents and all of their institutions. And we're still standing. We're still fucking standing. And nothing compares to what the people of Gaza are facing. And that's what I think about every fucking day. Every day, I think about the people of Gaza. At first, we focused on trying to get them aid. Now Israel cut off all aid. Now people tried to set up convoys. Israel bombed the convoys. We tried to make relationships with journalists. Israel assassinated the journalists. We protested. We fought for divestment. We did all sorts of stuff domestically. The government has oppressed and removed the visas of every foreign student who spoke up. They have thrown people in jail. They have expelled people and arrested people and prosecuted people here. And yet we're unbowed. We're unbroken. And more people than ever stand against Israel, stand against their genocide. It's incredible what this movement has been able to do. Has it been enough? No, it hasn't. But I never want you to be ashamed. I want you to be proud to be part of this movement. And I want you to know that you were on the right side of history. You were able to see it clear. Homeless backpacker.
This is me.
Okay, this one.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay? Israel.
Israel, yes.
Oh, crazy.
Israel okay.
Israel, okay.
Palestine okay.
Palestine, okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Yeah. What the fuck are you showing me, dude?
You know, many are burned alive. Show me the gas chambers.
He spoke about objectivity or something. The man is a total Hamas propagandist.
Fully one half of Israeli Jews believe that Israel should conduct a genocide in Gaza.
That is a lie.
I know, Benny.
It's so wrong that you're not a politician. Of course I am a politician. I am a politician. But I am a politician that the Democratic Party wants to destroy. Like... why do you think I'm making a Twitch stream and not a senator or congressman or whatever? Even at the state legislature. The reason is because they don't want people like me to be politicians. They don't want incorruptible people to be politicians. They don't want people that are pragmatists to be politicians. They don't want people that actually study and are intelligent and have a viewpoint to be politicians. You understand that, right? Like, I get attacked more for being a Democrat by Democrats than by any other group.
Everybody's lying.
We are looking at the Holocaust live on 4K screens, and our politicians, our human rights organizations feel helpless.
It may not be the death of absolutely everybody, but it means killing a lot of Palestinians and kicking the rest out of the area. And that is a genocide.
A genocide is something which is carried out systematically. That's not what is happening. They may even have a genocidal mentality, but they do not control government policy. That's done by the generals and, unfortunately, in my mind, by a man called Netanyahu, who's totally corrupt and incompetent.
These 54 Palestinians were killed in 2 separate Israeli strikes overnight, including on a school which was sheltering displaced families. Israel says they were targeted attacks on a Hamas command center, but it's now undeniable that the civilian death toll from the latest bombardments and blockade is intolerable. The ugly ripples of this increasingly ugly war are still being felt across the whole world. A young couple was shot dead outside a Jewish museum in Washington, D.C. on Wednesday. Both were Israeli embassy staffers. Suspected gunman, Elias Rodriguez, told officers, "I did it for Palestine." There's been a big reaction to what I said last week, with many of Israel's backers attacking me with the same venom that pro-Palestinians tend to do, and they don't like what I have to say the other way around. So let me just be clear again. I don't pick sides. I try to follow the facts and call out extremism on both sides. When facts change, so do my opinions. And if your opinions don't change when facts change, then maybe you're the problem, not me. What is clear to me is that what started as a justified war, Israel's right to defend itself against a horrific terrorist attack, has become something that has crossed any line. That is why this war has got to end, and it has to end very soon. In a moment, I'll talk to Benny Morris and Norman Finkelstein. But first, 1 year after he spoke to me from a hospital inside Gaza, I'm joined by the American medic, Dr. Mossab Nasser. Well, Dr. Nasser, great to have you back on Uncensored, albeit in even more appalling circumstances than the last time we spoke. Just tell me what it's like there right now in Gaza, what you're hearing, what you're seeing, what the reality is, because international journalists like me aren't allowed in. As I keep berating Prime Minister Netanyahu, if you want people to believe what you're saying about this, let the international journalists in. but they don't. So we're reliant on very scant detail other than people like you who really know.
Well, thank you, Piers, for having me. Again, it's been a year since we've talked. I believe last time was May 2024 when I was actually at the European hospital in Gaza. There was actually recently bombed, and many civilians were killed in that attack. You asked me how it is in Gaza today. The best example I can tell you, as someone who lives in Texas, is that the Israelis, unfortunately, or the Israeli army treats the Palestinians in Gaza like animals, almost like a.
I mean, like my feeling about the Piers Morgan thing is like he's a liar, he's a disgusting slime, and that I don't believe a word he says. But I treat him like an opportunist wind vane. All right, Piers Morgan is not persuaded by arguments and evidence. All right. Piers Morgan is not persuaded by facts. He adapts to the prevailing sentiment of acceptability, all right? And he tries to ride the fence for maximum self-exposure and maximum self-centering. He is a rat. He is a filthy opportunist. He's a slime, okay? He doesn't believe in literally anything, okay? The reason why he's changing his position is because being pro-Israel is now untenable. Politically, culturally, personally, criminally. And so he has to start adopting this position to maintain respectability, both among regular people, but also just like in general. The only people that are going to start supporting what Israel's doing are people that are genocidal maniacs. And so I don't believe him when he says, oh, I changed my mind based on the evidence. I believe he changed his mind based on prevailing sentiment has gotten to a certain point where supporting Israel is just not going to look good, right? It's like the Iraq War. I saw these same people with the Iraq War. They supported the Iraq War like fucking gangbusters until it got to 2003, 4, 5, 2004-ish, 2005-ish. It started to become very clear that the Iraq War was a quagmire, and suddenly they all started flipping. 2006 was 2005 and 2006. After Bush could no longer be defeated, that's when all these libs who supported the Iraq War suddenly learned it was a bad idea because everybody thought it was a bad idea. It was a 75% position. Now suddenly they figured it out. Do you think there was a bunch of new information that came out other than that sentiment? And the answer is no. They just are opportunist scum so that they could not be called out for being pro-Iraq War. So in order to avoid that, they're like, oh yeah, the Iraq War, what a mistake that was. Can't believe Bush lied, huh?
You know, the game.
Meanwhile, if you were one of the people who said like, Bush is lying, that's not true, the war is a bad idea, they called you they went after you viciously. They tried to primary you out of the Democratic Party. They spent millions of dollars marginalizing you and attacking you and saying you were an enemy and a terrorist supporter and a Saddam supporter. The same people who did all that were running to bear hug those people and go, yep, man, I love you, dude. All the people who survived those attempts. He gave pro-Palestinian voices on his platform on his show and needed to change his mind to keep his audience from turning on him because they heard the truth. That too.
Hunting in a ranch in Texas where you have these high fenced ranches with exotic animals.
I'm pretty sure Piers Morgan opposed Iraq from the start. Wait, really? That would really surprise me. I led the UK media campaign against the Iraq War. You know what? I didn't know that. Is that actually true? In this editorial titled Saddam Must Go, Morgan argues the threat posed by Saddam Hussein necessitates military action. This is not a war of choice, but a war of necessity. Interview with Tony Blair. Oh boy, this person bought receipts, huh? The fall of Baghdad. Morgan celebrates the fall of Baghdad. He writes, this is a historic day. This is a day that will be remembered for generations to come. This is a day that will mark the end of a brutal dictatorship and the beginning of a new era for Iraq.
Hunters go and chase these animals from one side of the fence to the other and kill these animals. And that's unfortunately how the Israeli army treats the Palestinians in Gaza today, like game. And you can actually see the gratification on their faces when they hunt a child or a woman or destroy a school or a kindergarten. So it is very sad to see that we have reached this reality that at this time in history, people are treated like animals. And, This is what we've heard at the beginning of the war, that Palestinians are human animals, and they have been treated as such for the past almost 2 years now, while the entire world is watching. So probably this is the best example as someone who lives in Texas and sees how hunters go to these ranches to chase game. That's what we see in Gaza today.
You have, I know, huge amounts of family and friends in Gaza. How many have lost their lives? People that are close to you?
So far, personally, you know, my entire family is in Gaza. I've lost 74 members so far. One of them was my mother. She died last year, almost a year ago. And I just lost my nephew, who's 20 years old, had a life ahead of him, such a handsome, intelligent, bright young man, who went, again, like game in Texas. He went to look for food for his family, and he was targeted in an Israeli airstrike and died of shrapnels in the chest and the head. And in fact, he died between his father's arms. He bled to death, and by the time the ambulance arrived to take him to the hospital, he was declared dead. So this is the reality. I mean, so far, 74 members of my family have been lost.
Apparently, he was immediately against the Iraq War, but he got fired in 2004 for publishing fake pictures of British soldiers abusing Iraqi prisoners. What do you mean fake? The particular pictures were fake? Because they definitely did that.
And I can tell you, Piers, as a Palestinian, and I lead a humanitarian organization, and we try to be as much as we can neutral and unbiased in our judgment, but we're left with no choice but to speak up. And I can tell you, watching these images coming out of Gaza on a daily basis of children being amputated, malnourished, head injuries, amputations, many are burnt alive. Until last night, we've seen those images coming out of Gaza. I can tell you, show me the gas chambers. Honestly, the death in a gas chamber is 100 times more merciful than being burnt alive in an Israeli fire. That is the reality where we are today. So we are looking at the Holocaust live on 4K screens, and our politicians, our human rights organizations, our celebrities are just watching and feel helpless. I don't know if they endorse it or they can't speak up, but it's time to speak up. You cannot just sit on the sidelines watching this horrific murder take place right in front of our eyes, and then maybe 10 or 100 years from now say, we wish we've done something about it. This is the time.
As you know, the Israeli argument has remained that they are on a mission to take out Hamas. They say Hamas continue to operate and live amongst civilian populations, and therefore, as they take out the terrorists with these strikes, they are inevitably going to kill civilians in the process, but that doesn't make it an unjust or immoral war, that they are defending themselves against a terrorist attack of enormous and horrific scale. And this is the only way that they can dismantle Hamas. What is your response to them?
Piers, I think if that is really the case, that's the most failed military operation in history. You have one of the most sophisticated armies in the world with the most sophisticated technologies. They can go and surgically get to Hamas.
He praises Israel for the Patriot attack at Lebanon. Still, Pierce is just trying to give himself protection for when the true scale of what Israel's doing in Gaza comes out. Yes, Piers Morgan is a white supremacist, imperialist Brit. Like every British person, every British right-winger, and I include any centrist and half of Labour, they're proud of the British Empire. They like the British Empire. They like Israel because Israel is the last colonial project of the British Empire. The last political projects, colonial projects of the British Empire were Rhodesia, Israel, and apartheid South Africa. All right? These are the ultimate expression of British power. White supremacy, genocide, ethnic cleansing. They love it. They love it. So whenever they see Israel out there committing crimes, they're like, that reminds me of what we used to do in India. They fucking love it.
Terrorists from Gaza or in Gaza if they want to, but that is not the case. What we see is,
Maple Takes, are you Canadian? Be honest. Maple Takes, are you Canadian? Caught. I mean, at least your name makes sense. You know what? I respect you because your name is Maple. I respect you for that. At least you don't cosplay as American. I respect you for that. I hate all creators that are Canadian who pretend to be American. I don't care what other thing you do. If you're Canadian and pretend to be American, I hate you. I don't care if I agree with you on 99% of things. I think it is the most pathetic thing that exists. Mudahar is the most pathetic of all. Mudahar is somebody who said, American troops fighting for your freedom. I can't believe you're insulting them. And he's fucking Canadian. Pathetic. Maple is turbo based. Yeah. He's Mike from Canada. Hell yeah. Okay, cool. If you're a Canadian who doesn't pretend to be American, I fuck with you. That's why I like Northern Lion. Northern Lion. His name is, it's right there in the title. Northern Lion, aka fucking Canadian. He's awesome. Also, is he Scottish by ethnicity? Is Northern Lion Scottish by ethnicity? He strikes me as Scottish by ethnicity. Is he? He also shows you how to be bald. Oh, he's probably French. Northern Lion is one of the good balds. There's like two types of bald. There's two types of bald. You have bald like Asmongold. You have bald like Tim Pool. You have that kind of bald where it's like they're bitter and they blame all their problems on their hairline and they blame all their problems on like things they can't control. And then you have good bald, which is like Patrick Stewart and Northern Lion and, you know, people who embrace the bald, who make bald sexy, who are like, fuck yeah, I'm bald. Squeaks, that's another guy. Those are the people who are like, they embrace the bald. They go like, yeah, sure, I can't grow hair like Mike from PA, but they lean into that shit. And honestly, I think Northern Lion looks better bald than I do with hair. Let's be honest. Let's be honest. Hassan rejects the bald. How do I explain Hassan to you people who are normal? Hassan is in the big leagues, okay? We're amateurs, all right? He's in the big leagues. Like for looks, there's like regular people looks, and then there's like the major leagues in looks, right? And in the major leagues, you have some of the most talented baseball players who have ever played the game, and they're juicing. That's Hassan, all right? He takes all those like hair, you know, supplements to not go bald because he's in the major leagues. He's got to compete in the major leagues. I'm playing beer league, right? Energymentum is getting behind Zohran. Is he having a broken clock moment? I mean, I consider him to be a pretty bad political analysis analyst overall. Like, I'm sorry, chat, but I think Energymentum kind of sucks at this. So like, I don't know what to say. I wish he were actually left wing. And I wish he believed that being left wing was popular, because we don't really have anybody who is popped off, who is good at political analysis, who's actually believes in left wing shit. Like the politics space on like Twitter, for example, and on Substack is full of basically people like at most Energymentum, who is, if I'm being honest, a Democrat shill. He doesn't really believe that left-wing stuff is popular. So we don't really have anybody that I can point to as like doing good analysis. Like, I don't want to point to only myself. I want to have other people who I like, who are creating content and who are intelligent. What we need is a left-winger who is not pugilistic, who's not insulting. Let me be that guy who just makes really nice charts and graphs and really good arguments and writes them out on the electoral sphere. That's what we need. That's what we need right now. Who's like saying like, look at this poll and it shows that supporting the left is popular. That's what we need.
That Hasan is beefing with Hawk Tua, which is a real problem for me because that's like my two goats right there. Hawk Tua did something wrong, but the only people who lost out were stupider than her. She shouldn't have done that. But like, back off. Back off. Back off my goat. Someone said Hasan is beefing with Hawk.
Here's the thing about scams. Stupid people fall for scams less than you would expect. It's midwits. Or people that are literally like demented, like they have completely lost their mind and shouldn't have control of their money anymore, and someone finds them and steals all their money because they can't defend themselves because their family didn't protect them. Like, those are people who get scammed a lot. It actually isn't the dumb people. Surprisingly enough, it's midwits with a blind spot. midwits with a blind spot are the best victims of scams. And what I mean is, like, you can get a job, you can save a little bit of money, you know, you're not like completely dumb, you're independent, but you get tricked. And what makes you the best target is when your family realizes that you've been scammed or been tricked, they try to intervene. And because you're a midwit, you're able to fend them off and keep the scam draining you for longer. So it's actually midwits who are the best targets, like midwits with a blind spot. So never think that scams are just for the stupid. That gives you protection for your own ego. I wouldn't get tricked. I'm smart. It's like, no, you're Fredo. Don't be Fredo. All of us could be tricked. I could be tricked. You could be tricked. Everybody could get tricked. We all have blind spots. We all have people we trust. And a good scam is one that will find that and exploit it. And the most important thing is for you to remain humble and realize that you could get tricked. I don't think that's true in the Haktua coin situation. I think the people that got tricked at Haktua coin do deserve it, and she did nothing wrong.
Deliberate targeting of schools, of homes. You know, my nephew was not a Hamas. He's not even a Hamas sympathizer. He went to look for food and he was killed, along with 24 innocent people like him who were waiting in line to get food for their families. It's a trophy hunt. It has absolutely nothing to do with Hamas today. It is basically an obvious and clear ethnic cleansing, and only someone that lives in denial or someone who's honestly completely crazy would believe otherwise.
Well, you know, I've resisted the call from many that it's a genocide on the basis that it seemed to me that Israel, for a long time, I believed, had a fundamental right to defend itself, and that's what they were doing. I have to say, when I listened to Smodrich, one of the more right-wing of a very right-wing cabinet under Netanyahu, talking the other day, he was talking in clear genocidal language. It was unarguable. And when you look at what's happening on the ground in Gaza, I don't see any plan other than the apparent total disintegration of all infrastructure there, the killing of as many people as possible, all under the pretext that they say that they're only going after Hamas and doing so in as humane a way as possible. It just seemed that what we're seeing on a daily basis and hearing on a daily basis represents that pretext at all. And I also see no end game. I don't understand what Israel's plan is, other than what Smodrich says it is, which is to clear everybody out, which is that is genocide. If you eradicate a people from their home based on ethnicity, that is a genocide. So, you know, all those who've been calling it that, and I've been resisting, I've now been saying I find it almost impossible to disagree now, given what we're witnessing.
Well, you've come a long way, Piers, and I admire you, and I respect that you have really changed your position on what's happening in Gaza. It's as I said, it's obvious. You can't really deny the fact that what's happening is a genocide. What's happening is an ethnic cleansing of an entire population. Are you still with me?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's undeniable. You know, the mass starvation of children, the malnutrition that the children of Gaza are facing. You know, we've just evacuated 5 children out of Gaza to Texas, actually, for treatment, and one of them really straight to the ICU from Gaza, malnourished, broken bones, amputated arm. It's horrific. I carried those children between my arms all the way from Egypt, first evacuated from Gaza to Egypt and then to the US. It's heartbreaking to see these children having to suffer that level of suffering for absolutely no reason. This is not a war about Hamas. This is not a war about, defending Israel defending itself. This is simply a clear ethnic cleansing.
Here's the room reader. Do you condemn Morgan as such a weasel? Makes my skin crawl. I mean, like, you have to understand that for people like Piers Morgan, they do not give a shit about truth or justice or any kind of liberal value. I think that's what people really need to understand. There are no liberals. There are no liberals. There no longer exists liberal parties. There are not. There are only nationalist parties that have liberal histories. Nobody is pushing the idea of human universals. Nobody is pushing things like the United Nations anymore. Nobody is pushing the idea of liberal international institutions and rule of law and things like that. That is all broken down. We are in a neo-colonial, neo-fascist era where even, quote, centrist parties, do not actually believe in equality among nations. Okay? That is just, it's done. It's gone. And so you have status quo power worshipers who call themselves liberal, but they do not believe any of the tenets of liberal civilization.
Not a lawyer or an attorney to give a label for what's happening, but many of the historians, many of the lawyers have basically described what's happening in Gaza as a genocide. And in fact, the food distribution plan that Israel is enforcing and forcing upon humanitarian organizations today clearly reflects that this is basically an ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians. Having the Palestinian household or family members basically to go and pick their aid from a specific location that's highly fenced with checkpoints effectively. It's another reason for Israel to kidnap more Palestinians and for them to disappear forever. I still have many of my colleagues from Nasser Hospital have been kidnapped since the beginning of the war. These doctors have never come back. Dr. Hasan Abu Safia, he fought, for his patients until the last second. No one knows where his whereabouts. All the news indicates that he's being tortured in Israeli jails. Many, many amazing doctors had absolutely nothing to do with Hamas. Just disappeared. The targeting of journalists, the targeting of aid workers, the targeting of children. What does that have to do with Hamas? And again, as I said, if you cannot defeat Hamas throughout all this time, almost 16, 17 months, to me, that's the most failed military operation in history.
Well, it's clearly not working because the hostages haven't been released. They should be, absolutely should be, but they haven't been, which means the military operation by Israel's forces to secure their release just isn't working. This strategy just does not work. Listen, Dr. Nasser, it's great to talk to you. Thank you for the work that you do. I'm so sorry about the incredible loss to your family and your mother and your nephew and all the others that you've lost from your extended family in Gaza. My heart goes out to you and to your family. It's become an utterly horrific war, this, and it has to end. But I thank you for joining me again.
Thank you, Piers.
Well, I'm going to be joined now by two people with very different views about the war, Professor Norman Finkelstein and Benny Morris, Israeli historian. Well, welcome to both of you. Benny Morris, my main question right now for Benjamin Netanyahu, I put it to him on X directly. And I said, if you're doing everything by the book and everything is justified and everything is legal and you're not committing any war crimes or any of these things, I simply asked him one simple question. If you're doing nothing wrong, let international journalists go in and see for themselves. And I think it is completely shameful that the Israeli government continues to stop international journalists from doing their job. And it's down to the individual risk assessment will be by the journalists and their companies. It was put to me on 2-3 days ago by an IDF member that somehow this was being done for the safety of the journalists. It's not. It's complete nonsense. And that's not down to the Israeli government anyway to make that call. I mean, do you at least accept that it is wrong that journalists are not allowed in there?
I completely agree with you, Piers. The government has made a terrible mistake in not allowing journalists in, and whoever dies there dies, but they should have allowed them in. But I would like to make a comment about what your previous guest was saying. He said he spoke about objectivity or something. The man is a total Hamas propagandist. Half the things he said were outright lies. Lots of doctors have been abducted and have disappeared is total nonsense. I know of 1 or 2 cases of doctors who were taken to an Israeli detention center. What happened to them afterwards, I don't know. I don't think they've been killed. I think they're under arrest for whatever reason. But
so they could have been abducted.
Many doctors have been. Doctors
you're basically agreeing with him, aren't you?
No, I'm not. I'm saying that he talked about.
You just said you know of some doctors who were detained. You have no idea what happened to them.
I know of 1 or 2 doctors.
You're confirming his story.
No, I'm not. I'm confirming.
There was a doctor who was raped to death. There was a doctor, one of the most premier surgeons in Gaza, who was raped to death by Israel because he refused to stop treating patients in the hospital, and they arrested him from an operating room, and then they raped him to death. This is a confirmed fact. There's a United Nations Human Rights Office of the High Commissioner UN expert horrified by death of Gaza orthopedic surgeon in Israeli detention. Just last year, the death of a renowned Palestinian orthopedic surgeon after nearly 4 months in detention was horrifying, a UN expert said today, demanding an independent international investigation into the circumstances of his demise. He was Dr. Al Bursh, 50, was the head of the orthopedic department at Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza City. He reportedly died on 19 April 2024 in Ofer prison, an Israeli detention facility in the West Bank. Before his death, Dr. Al-Bursh had reportedly been beaten in prison and his body showing signs of torture. Dying in hell, the fate of Palestinian medics jailed by Israel. One of Gaza's most prominent doctors may have been raped to death, recent revelations show. He's not the only one. 4 months later, Ofer prison guards dragged Al-Bursh and dumped him in the prison yard, naked from the waist down, bleeding and unable to stand. Recognizing him, some of the other prisoners carried Al-Bursh to a nearby room, and he died moments later. Dr. Al-Bursh had become a fixture of the lives of many through the video diaries he posted before his arrest. His video showed him and his colleagues digging mass graves in the Al-Shifa yard to bury people because Israel would not let their bodies be taken to a cemetery. Operating on the injured or dying with little or no equipment, and waiting together for the Israeli assault on a hospital where thousands had sought safety. This is who they're murdering. This is Israel. And this has been known for a year. Why is this suddenly a story that people want to talk about again?
A small part of what is true, the rest is a lie, as is a large part of what he's saying. Had Israel wanted to kill all the Palestinians, that's what genocide actually means, there would have been many, many, many more deaths.
First of all, we don't know what the deaths are. Number two, that's never been the genocide rule where, oh, you know, if we had wanted to kill, we could have killed even more. No, you couldn't. And the reason why you couldn't is something that happened this morning. You had to have plausible deniability. Why did you need plausible deniability? Because Israel marks 800th plane load of U.S. guns, bombs, and ammo as war nears day 60. And there were 140 ship loads as well. So 800 plane loads of weapons and 140 ships of weapons from the U.S. Did I say day 800? Day 600. Sorry. 800th plane load of U.S. Israel marks 800th plane load of U.S. guns, bombs, and ammo as war nears day 600. And that includes, there also was, in addition, 140 shiploads. That's 90,000 tons of armaments and military equipment from the United States to Israel since the start of the war. So Israel needed plausible deniability. They did a genocide intentionally. We don't know the numbers of deaths. Oh, they could have killed more by doing what? Nuking it and getting fallout on their own people? They've bombed this more intensely than the U.S. bombed Vietnam.
In Gaza, each time Israel launches an air raid, we hear of the Palestinians saying 24 people have died, 30 people have died, and I'm sure many of them are civilians, but I'm also sure that the Air Force going in against these targets is attacking Hamasniks. We never hear from...
We know, by the way, that's not even true. If someone is a member of Hamas and they're in a crowd of 100 people and they're not engaged in combat, it's not permissible to just drop a bomb on them. That is batshit crazy. Can you imagine if the Nazis had been like, we're not committing a genocide. This guy is a member of the underground resistance, and they just dropped bombs on Jews in a concentration camp and said, well, he was a member of the resistance, legitimate target. What are you talking about?
From the Hamas, how many of their people are being killed in these strikes. All we hear about and all we see on television is dead babies and dead women. They never show grown male, army-aged males being taken out of these ruins. And the Hamas uses these things systematically. The schools, the hospitals, various so-called safe compounds to hide in.
But out of interest, all right. But Benny Morris, when you hear someone like Smodrich last week talking about the campaign to just clear everybody out,
he's disgusting. You don't have to convince me. He's disgusting.
Right, but so my question for you, but my question for you though is this. All right, he's disgusting. What he said was disgusting. Yes. What he said was also genocidal. So whereas you do not believe it's genocide that's going on, he clearly is talking in a way which made me believe that actually maybe the intention is genocide. It may not be the death of absolutely everybody, but it means killing a lot of Palestinians and kicking the rest out of the area. And that is a genocide.
No. A genocide is something which is top-down government policy and carried out systematically. That's not what is happening. He is definitely, some of his speeches are genocidal. I don't know what he means exactly. And there are other ministers who speak like him, and they shouldn't be doing that. And they may even have a genocidal mentality, but they do not control government policy, and they do not.
Yes, they do. It's the defense minister. It's the prime minister. They are part of the government. They're expressing their intent. This is like, actually, oh my God, Heinrich Himmler is not the Chancellor of Germany. He's not a representative.
Not control what the army is doing. That's done by the generals, and unfortunately, in my mind, by a man called Netanyahu, who's totally corrupt and incompetent.
Yeah, okay, we bring in Norman Finkelstein.
But it's got.
By the way, this is a desperate attempt to defend this Israeli state, because everybody knows that what Israel is doing is government policy. So in a way to try to defend the Israeli state from being dismantled, which it should be, just like Nazi Germany was dismantled and its government reformed under, in order to avoid that, the Israeli government needing to be reformed, they are like, no, it's just one guy who's doing it. Like, Germany wasn't Nazi, it was just Hitler. No.
It's got nothing to do with genocide.
Well, I think you're getting perilously close to agreeing with me. Norman Finkelstein, I mean, the bottom line is, if it sounds from the rhetoric like a genocide, if the actions on the ground are becoming increasingly genocidal, if there's no other plan being put out there for what happens to Palestinian people other than many more will die and the rest will be thrown out of Gaza, I don't know what else you end up calling this. And, you know, I listened to that doctor. I didn't hear somebody that I felt was a Hamas sympathizer or propagandist. He went out of his way to say he wasn't.
He's just a liar. He's a liar.
Well, he's a liar who's lost 78 members of his family. So, I mean, Norman Finkelstein.
Maybe it's true, and I agree, and I feel sorry for him, but they're caught up.
The word liar coming out of a Zionist mouth should be, you should automatically just start laughing.
In the bad situation where Hamas controls the population and is willing to sacrifice as many civilians.
They don't control the population. Israel does. That's the whole point. They don't control the population. Israel does.
They can to win world support.
Well, which is exactly what Israel's also seems like they're prepared to sacrifice. Norman Finkelstein.
Well, thank you for having me on the program, and I hope that you'll hear me out. Is it a genocide? Well, as you know, Piers, from the first time I appeared on your program many months ago, I said it was a genocide. I said it was perfectly obvious when October 9th, the then Defense Minister Galon said, we're not going to allow in any food, fuel, water, or electricity. Well, for a hermetically sealed population, that's a genocide. When the head of state, Mr. Netanyahu, compared the current situation with Amalek and invoked the biblical reference, it was clear, as the Israeli human rights organization B'Tselem put it, that he was talking about genocide. Now, in the 19 months that have elapsed, there have been adjustments in Israeli policy due to external pressure. That's called politics. So when the external pressures escalated, they had to diminish the genocide. And then beginning roughly when Kamala Harris was nominated for president in the United States, and all the cameras switched to the American election, Mr. Netanyahu, who's very sensitive to and knowledgeable of the American media, he then escalated the genocidal assault on Gaza again. And then, as you remember, because I did several programs with you at that time, as you'll remember, every day there was another massacre. There were so many massacres it was impossible to keep count, and it was impossible to remember. Now again, there was some
first massacre.
Some lessening.
The first massacre,
okay,
which was launched by Hamas.
Okay. I've not forgotten it, Benny. But you.
First of all, we don't know who killed who because Israel stopped any kind of forensic examination because they did the Samson or the Da'iya doctrine. What's the one where they kill their own people? I'm sorry, I'm having a brain fart. There's so many different doctrines of where they mass kill civilians. The Hannibal doctrine, the Da'iya doctrine. Yeah, it's the Hannibal doctrine. The Da'iya doctrine is when they indiscriminately target a neighborhood. Okay, so this is the reality here. Is we don't know who killed who on October 7th. Outside of some videos, we don't know. We know a large chunk, like something like 40% of the people killed on October 7th were police or soldiers or Israelis who took up arms. So, and we don't know who killed the civilians. We haven't. There was no forensic investigation done because Israel attack helicopters opened fire indiscriminately into the Nova Festival. So we don't know who killed who. We just have Hamas being responsible for all the deaths, which is an interesting little sleight of hand that he's doing.
Danny, you have to remember manners. I'll remember the massacres and you remember manners. I'm speaking now. So there were times when Israel, as I said, escalated the genocide and then diminished the genocide. Now, let's talk about the responsibility and the mindset. You've mentioned Mr. Smotrich. I mentioned Mr. Netanyahu. There was also several others whose names have constantly come up. Obviously, Defense Minister Gallant, who was indicted along with Prime Minister Netanyahu by the International Criminal Court. But it's not just the leadership. It's not just the leadership. The most recent poll showed that fully 1/2 of Israeli Jews, we're talking now about the population, fully 1/2 of Israeli Jews believe that Israel should conduct a genocide in Gaza. That's what the poll result showed. 82%.
That's a lie. That is a lie.
I know, Benny, everybody's lying.
There's
allow
never
me
been
to
a poll
finish.
about supporting
Please,
genocide.
Mr.
This is nonsense.
Benny,
You're purveying lies.
Okay. Okay, Benny.
Is that
Benny,
poll, Norman? What is that? What is that poll? What is that poll, Norman? It seems a very important poll. That.
The poll
What is
was
that poll you're referring to?
It was a university, if my memory is correct, it was a University of Pennsylvania poll. It was reported everywhere. Benny Morris knows about the poll. He's fully informed of the poll, but he's doing his job as an official Israeli propagandist.
No, I have no job. I don't like this government.
Benny,
I'm not their spokesman.
You've reduced yourself. Mr. Benny, you've reduced yourself to the level of a Holocaust denier. It's a real shame that you have sunk so low, but allow me to continue. The poll showed that 82% of Israeli Jews, 82% support a forced expulsion from Gaza
That's not
of the
the same
entire
as genocide.
population.
That may be true.
That's a war crime. Also, how do you do forced expulsions? There's the force part, which means you're going to do what? Systemic violence against the civilian population? He's saying, oh, it's not genocide to do ethnic cleansing. That's a similar war crime as genocide. That is a world historic crime to do that.
That may be true, but that's not genocide. That's not genocide. What you said before about genocide is total nonsense. Total nonsense.
Piers, you're going to have to ask Benny Morris to please allow me to speak.
Well, Benny, I will let you respond to this.
You're taking up all the time, though.
Yeah, Norman, you must give him a chance to respond.
Okay, I will finish. I will finish. Then, one of the leaders of the opposition in Israel described Israeli soldiers as killing children as a hobby in Gaza. Now, yes, he took it back. He took it back after he came under ferocious attack. But he himself acknowledged, when I debated Mr. Morris about a year ago, and I said that Israel targets children, he laughed. He thought it was such a funny remark by me.
It's absolute
I'm wondering, I'm wondering, after the foreign doctors in Gaza, after the foreign doctors in Gaza attested that the children were being shot in the head and the chest, and when one of the leaders of the opposition in Israel said that the Israeli soldiers killed children
I
as
must
a
let Benny
hobby.
respond, Norman. I must let Benny respond.
He kept interrupting the entire time.
There has never been a poll asking Israelis whether they support genocide. This is a total lie. And
By the way, if they did, I think that's a good fucking question. Should every man, woman, and child in Gaza be killed? I would like to see that question asked. I think you would see a significant portion of Israelis saying yes.
50% figure.
For some reason, I can't use the archive anymore. It breaks for me. I don't know what the fuck this is. I'm actually not sure why this, what is breaking on my fucking, it's just breaking. For some reason, it breaks for me. Nearly half of Israelis support army killing all Palestinians in Gaza. Poll finds. Do you support the claim that the Israeli army in conquering enemy cities should act in a way the Israelites did when they conquered Jericho under the leader of Joshua, i.e. to kill all its inhabitants? 47 said yes. There you have it.
Is also something completely out of Norman Finkelstein's imagination, his twisted mind, actually. There is no targeting of children deliberately, and what this politician said, and he's actually a very clever politician and usually tells things straight and the truth, was a slip of the tongue, and he said, I made a mistake. I said the wrong thing, and I shouldn't have used that phrase, stupid phrase. Israeli soldiers do not target, as a rule, children. There may be, and I'm sure there are and have been, war crimes committed by Israeli soldiers and pilots, perhaps, in this war in the course of 19 months. But I don't think we should forget that Hamas is a homicidal, a homophobic, misogynist, totalitarian organization which tried to kill as many Israelis as they could, most of them civilians, on the 7th of August. And what befell Gaza as a result is revenge for that attack by the Hamas. And the Hamas said they would do the same thing again if they are revived and resuscitated as a leading organization in the Gaza Strip. And I think that's the objective of the Israeli army, to end Hamas rule and to end the Hamas as an organization in the Gaza Strip. And anybody normal who doesn't support Islamists, doesn't support anti-Semitism, doesn't support misogyny, doesn't support homophobia, should be against Hamas, which Norman Finkelstein apparently isn't.
Yeah, but I don't hear people supporting Hamas certainly in mainstream media or anywhere else. Everyone's of a unanimity that what they did was unconscionable and they should be held to account. The problem is that the strategy that the Israeli government
is... And what they still want to do,
yes, I heard...
They still want to do and say they
Benny,
want to do.
Benny, let's just assume, because they said it themselves, in fact, the spokesman said it after October the 7th, that if they can do it again and again, they will. So they want to get rid of all the Jews in Israel. Okay. That is Hamas.
And of the state of Israel. And of the state of Israel.
But the problem is, as I've always said from the start of this, what is a proportional response to what happened? And what is the end game? What does Israel actually want at the end of this? And I'm beginning to think they don't have any plan at all. That actually what they're hoping is that they can pursue the line of many of the more right-wing members of that cabinet. Maybe Netanyahu himself now has been introduced into this because he has no incentive to end the war, because the moment it ends, he'll be held accountable for allowing October the 7th to happen in the first place, which was hugely unpopular for him in the polls with the Israeli people. But secondly, he's facing corruption charges in a criminal court the moment this is all over. There is no incentive for him to end it. And so this carries on and on with more and more Palestinians being killed. And all right, you might have a belief that the IDF never deliberately target children, but they are deliberately and relentlessly targeting civilian areas, in their estimation, going after Hamas. But in the process, they know they are going to kill on a daily basis dozens, if not hundreds, of innocent people as well. And that's been going on now week after week, month after month. And at some point, you surely have to concede that this strategy is not working. It's making Israel global pariahs. It's making Israel global pariahs. There is no evidence that Hamas is being dismantled. In fact, the opposite appears to be happening, where for every Hamas terrorist killed, they're apparently replacing them with multiple more people who share that ideology. The hostages are not being released. God knows how many of those hostages may be killed now with these intensifying airstrikes.
No,
Israel now says it's launching.
Can I correct
Israel
you?
now said, well, let me finish.
About the
Israel now says it's launching a massive new attack. Well, okay, bully for Israel, but actually none of this seems to be working. And so at some point, I say enough. Yes, correct me.
Okay, I understood that. Can I correct you on one small point? The Hamas kidnapped 251 hostages, most of them Israelis, some of them Nepalese, some of them Thai, on the 7th of October 2023. Of those, 177 were actually released as a result of the Israeli counteroffensive in interim arrangements.
Well, they were released by diplomacy, actually. They were released through diplomacy.
But the Israeli military pressure is what persuaded the Hamas, because they also
So why is it not working now?
Why
isn't it working now?
It will work. I don't know. Firstly, there's only 20 alive Israeli hostages left in Hamas hands. I do believe that the government is incompetent in...
We don't know that. We know there are over 50 are not accounted for.
We know there's 20 live ones and assume 38 dead ones. That's what the Israeli
but nobody knows for sure.
knows. Okay, nobody knows for sure. The government now, which was incompetent and I think incompetently managed this war, that's why it stretched out for so long. Though don't forget, we also had a war with Iran and with Hezbollah, and we continue to have a war with the Houthis from Yemen. So it's not just been Israel focusing only on Gaza. But
but in the war, if I may say, before I go back to Norman, with the war with Hezbollah, that was a scenario where Israel, in terms of military operation, brilliantly targeted 3,000 Hezbollah terrorists in a way that begs the question, why could they not have done a similar operation on Hamas? And I've heard all the excuses and explanations and arguments, but in one case, Israel has now, since October the 7th, 2023, just launched endless strikes and assaults on civilian populations in Gaza, killing, we don't know how many, but we know it's many tens of thousands, including over 20,000 children in a population with 50% under 18. And in their offensive against Hezbollah, which was incredibly successful, they targeted 3,000 terrorists with pages, which have got explosives in. There's a massive difference in the way that Israel's gone about these two counter-terrorist operations, as they would put it. And I would argue the way they went after Hezbollah had global support in a way that the way they've gone after Hamas in Gaza is increasingly making Israel a global pariah. Norman, your response.
I agree with you completely, but there were two reasons for that. The first one is that the Hamas has systematically hidden behind civilians and in tunnels underneath civilian centers.
Are we having a monologue? With all due respect to you, Piers, I think there's a misunderstanding about what's been happening since October 7th. Once October 7th happened, it was a crisis for Israel. About that, there's no dispute. But it was also viewed, as the cliche had it, it was also an opportunity. And the opportunity was to once and for all solve the Gaza question. Now, from day one, it was perfectly obvious that the goal of Israel was to solve the Gaza question through three methods. One, ethnic cleansing. Two, make Gaza unlivable. And three, mass killing, mass death and destruction. Now, if you look at it from that vantage point, the operation has been hugely successful. I don't know why, with all due regard, and I do respect you, I don't know why you keep saying it's been unsuccessful. They've destroyed about 90% of the housing in Gaza. They've destroyed about half the hospitals in Gaza. They've destroyed about half the universities in Gaza. They've destroyed about half the arable land in Gaza. Gaza won't be habitable any time in the next 2 decades, according to the best estimations by the International
a community of international organizations, the World Bank, the and International Monetary Fund, UNCTAD, and so forth. It's been hugely successful. Where we're at now is the final phase. And the final phase is why all the rats, like the leadership in the UK right now, and the French and the Canadians, they're trying to jump off the sinking ship because they know exactly what Israel has in mind. We're now at the apocalypse, the final phase. Mr. Morris has written a lot about 1948 in Israel. And in fact, what's happening now is very similar to what happened in October 1948. If you read his books, which I have, you see a massive escalation of atrocities during the 1948 war as they're trying to finish the job. And now Israel is trying to finish the job. If you read your own Financial Times, it described very beautifully what this Gaza Humanitarian Foundation was about. They were going to set up 2 or 3 distribution points in the south of Gaza. And then everybody from the north and the middle of Gaza would have to go to the south in order to get food or water or medicine. And then when everybody was congregated in the south, what do you think is going to happen? Exactly what happened in October 1948. There were going to be the massacres. You know what they were going to say.
Can I say something?
There was rioting. There was rioting at the food distribution centers. The IDF felt afraid. And then it started to fire. And then they hoped
Piers,
in one fell swoop they could send the whole population over the border into Egypt.
He likes to lecture.
It's perfectly obvious what Israel is doing now. It's the last stage, or I should say, it's the final stage of the final solution. And now some of the Western leaders don't want to have to dirty their hands with it. So suddenly people like Lamy are discovering that it's intolerable, the situation in Gaza. Guess what?
Can I
it's
say
been
something?
intolerable since October 8th.
Okay. Final word, very briefly, to you, Benny.
As far as I've understood, that firstly, at the moment, there's discussions of a prisoner exchange and a ceasefire between Israel and the Hamas, which may work out and give the Hamas a breathing space of 60 days at least in which to reorganize and whatever. But
Hamas is not going to be defeated because it is a national resistance organization. The Russian Empire occupied Poland for hundreds of years, but Poland rose from the ashes because Polish nationality is a real thing that people identify with and organize around. You're not going to defeat a national liberation movement from oppression by oppressing them unless you annihilate the entire population. It's always going to continue to exist. Now, Hamas represents the conservative Islamist political tradition within Palestine. Why is that the one that is so prominent? Well, because the United States and Israel propped it up because they didn't want to have secular left-wingers in Palestine because they were worried about the Cold War. They were worried about pan-Arab nationalism. So if you're wondering why it's Hamas and not PFLP or some other secular left-wing group, it's because that's who the United States supported. That's who the Gulf states and the Gulf monarchies supported. That's who Israel supported. So stop talking about Hamas as it's some sort of boogeyman when you're the one who created it.
The Israeli military plan, as far as it's been published, is to take over essentially 75% and maybe by the end 100% of the Gaza Strip and root out the Hamas, kill the Hamas people or get them to surrender and leave the territory, and to supply the Palestinian population in 3 centers, not just in the south, but also in the north, with humanitarian aid. If the Hamas will allow it to come through, because the Hamas have been taking most of the humanitarian aid
Benny.
and then selling it to merchants, and then selling it to merchants and making money with which they can hire new fighters. That's what the Hamas has been doing with the humanitarian aid.
Okay, Benny, the truth is, when you launch a 3-month blockade of aid going in, when you know kids are starving, it's unconscionable. I don't care
the
what
kids
you
weren't
try and dress
starving.
it.
That's incorrect. There was a lot of food stores there for this period. Now they're reaching a stage at which there is famine, and Israel has begun.
All right, I've got to leave it there. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Norman. We've run out of time.
The whole world is lying. The whole world is lying. The World Food Program
except Norman
is lying.
Finkelstein. Except for Norman Finkelstein. Everybody's lying.
UNICEF is lying. The whole world, which says there's a massive starvation verging on famine in Gaza, it's all made up.
Well, one thing, listen, you don't have to be an expert. You don't have to be, Norman, you don't have to be. You don't have to be an expert to know if you stop food going in sufficient quantities to a population that's already been at war since October 2023, and many of them are young kids. They're going to start starving to death, and they will. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you both for a spirited debate.
If the food doesn't arrive.
Yeah, well, the food hasn't been arriving because there's been a blockade. We've got to leave it there. Thank you very much.
No, it started again now arriving.
Well, that's very generous of Israel, isn't it? After 3 months of starving people.
It's not
thank
a
you
matter
all
of
very
generosity.
much.
There's also international pressure.
Yeah,
3
sure.
months
Well, the pressure's
of starving 1 million children.
Got to leave it there.
3 months of starving 1 million children.
Got to leave it there.
And he laughed. He laughed. And this is ultimately every single Zionist. Can you imagine if I laughed at the starvation of a single Israeli? What would happen to me? If I laughed about the single death of an Israeli, what would happen to me? This motherfucker's laughing at 1 million children starving to death. And that's the end of that's the end of it. And like when people look at the shooting at the Israeli embassy, like for me, killing another person is something that is like almost it's like so hard to understand. You know what I mean? It's so hard to understand taking the life of another person with violence. And then you see somebody giggling and laughing at 1 million children being starved, and they dehumanize themselves. They dehumanize themselves. And this is why I'm not a pacifist. This is why I consider World War II to be justified. I thought it was justified to destroy Nazism by any means necessary. That's why I think hanging Nazi leaders with the death penalty was not only good, it was a necessity. That's why I don't believe in the complete abolishment of the death penalty. I think they should have executed more Nazis. I think they let too many Nazis get off. They should have killed, through a trial, in the Nuremberg trials, more of them. I think they should have hung more Southern Confederates for treason. I think more people should have been prosecuted. And I think the death penalty was not only regrettable, it was a necessity.
Like I said, thank you all very much. I appreciate it. Piers Morgan Uncensored is proudly independent, the only boss around here.
I love, that was honestly, can I say this about Piers Morgan? I don't like Piers Morgan, but I think that it is smart for us to go to places like that and win, just like Finkelstein just did. I think there is value in taking these like neutral spaces and not letting them just be propaganda spaces. Now, even this baboon, this scumbag, is admitting that Israel is committing a genocide. All right, chat, I have to talk about Ryan Beard. Ryan Beard is a streamer. We watched a video of his. We watched his takedown of Destiny, which was a pretty good video. But apparently, Ryan Beard is trying to attack Bad Empanada because Bad Empanada called him out for basically taking Ethan Klein's side, which is absolutely batshit crazy. I could have sworn there was a video of him making fun of Ryan Beard. Am I wrong? Maybe he talked about it live and it's not out yet. I might have to become a member of Bad Empanada. So Ryan Beard just posted something on Twitter, and I want to go over it. And I want to encourage all of you to also have your views be known on this post. It's important that all of you have your voices heard as well. Here's a copy to the link. I don't want you to be shy about expressing your views. You know, don't feel that you can't express your views. You know, don't just be passive. Because I defended Ethan Klein after he had CPS called on him, and because I have been critical of Bad Empanada's history of harassing and doxing people, saying that Jews aren't oppressed, I have been labeled a liberal Zionist by Bad Empanada and people on Reddit. Let me be clear for a millionth time. I am 100% unequivocally anti-Zionist. I believe Zionism is a harmful ethno-religious ideology, ethno-nationalist ideology that has been used to justify the oppression of countless Palestinians. If you want to criticize me, go right ahead, but please don't do it by attaching me to an ideology that I've always completely disagreed with and think is being actively used to justify committing a genocide. That's all good. That's great. However, what I find odd is Ethan Klein doesn't agree with you. So why are you defending Ethan Klein? Now, the main point I said is, who called CPS on Ethan Klein? The answer is, we don't know. The answer to that is, we don't know. Ethan Klein, however, defamed multiple people. I said, who called CPS on Ethan? He says, I have no idea. Possibly someone from Reddit. Possibly somebody who knows Ethan personally. However, I do know that Badapadada has repeatedly justified that he thinks it was good that CPS was called, which I think is ridiculous given the fact that Giardia is 6 times less dangerous for children than the common flu. Now, chat, I want you to understand something. Giardia is a parasite, right? And it may be less dangerous than the flu. That might be true. The flu is actually really dangerous. Just because you call it common doesn't mean it's not dangerous. The flu is actually extremely dangerous. You should not get the flu. You should get flu shots because the flu kills people. So you should avoid getting the fucking flu by all means. Just because it's common doesn't mean it's not dangerous. But leaving that aside, it doesn't matter how dangerous it is. What matters is, and I'm going to get into this with the thread. So let's just read the thread. So why did you defend Ethan when he libeled all of us, especially Denims, and claimed that we were responsible for the CPS call? He even said Denims did it. What motivated you to defend defamation? Huh? You think me defending that it was ridiculous that CPS was called means I defend that Ethan said Denims did CPS? You're smarter than this, Mike. Please actually engage with what I'm saying. You admit that CPS may have been called by someone in his personal life. He has admitted he doesn't know who did it. Why are you defending him? Again, do you know the condition of his home? Why are you speaking out at all? Again, he defamed multiple people saying we did it. He said we did a false CPS call. Now, there is no evidence it was a false CPS call. I don't know if it's justified or not. I don't urge any of you to call CPS because we don't know. But he used the CPS visiting his home as fodder to play victim and say we did it. Completely defamatory, no evidence at all. So rushing to defend Ethan and say, oh, the CPS was ridiculous. You don't know shit. You don't know shit. Stop defending Ethan Klein. You don't know who called it. You don't know if it's justified. And I said, I'm defending it because I think it was insane that anyone called CPS. Why do you think that? Why do you think that? It could have been valid. You don't know. I don't know. I don't have, you know, it could have been a valid call. We never saw the report from CPS. We never saw any evidence that the CPS agent said it was unwarranted. We don't know who the caller is. You're acting like you know shit you don't know. I'm defending it because I think it was insane that anyone called CPS, and it was ridiculous that Denims uncritically watched that Badapadada video in the first place. And it's ridiculous that Badapadada has continued to defend it since. That doesn't mean I justify Ethan saying Denims did CPS or casting blame on any individual person for the call. I said, why do you think it's insane? You don't have first-hand knowledge of the physical treatment of his children. Infection by parasites could be a justified reason for a wellness check. He's the one who made this public for the purpose of defamation. Are you okay? Again, the only reason we know about the CPS call is because he came out and said, oh, it's the pro-Palestinian people. They're calling CPS on me, which is just a complete lie. We had nothing to do with it. Infection by a parasite that is 6 times less deadly than the common flu is not a justified reason for a wellness check. This is actually debate pervert brain. This is a sign that you're dumb. This is a sign that you are stupid. You have been lost in the sauce. Children having ringworm, children having poor hygiene, children having parasites is a justified reason to check and see if they're being neglected. I'm sorry, you're wrong. It doesn't mean that it has to be deadly before you care. But if children are riddled with parasites, if children have ringworm or are dirty, that's a reason to check on them. It doesn't have to be deadly, you dumb fuck. And by the way, I'm not a child wellness expert. I'm not a CPS agent. So I'm not going to make a determination on the validity of the call because I don't have the training and I don't know what I'm talking about. This is what's crazy with debate pervert brain. Somehow he Googled how deadly is Giardia, and so he's now determined that having Giardia is not a reason for CPS. What the fuck are you talking about? You are an idiot. Like, you are an actual idiot. I had a cat growing up that would shit all over my house no matter how much my parents tried to get it to use the litter box. That does not mean I was in danger of being neglected by my parents. Did you get a parasite from it? And yes, if you have an animal and it's giving diseases to your children, then the animal has to be removed. I know we're all Redditors and we value dogs and cats over people, but if you have a dog or cat and they're creating dangerous conditions for your children, you don't get to keep that dog or cat. I'm sorry, Redditor, but that's not okay. All right? I love dogs. I love cats, but they don't have priority over your kids, you fucking weirdo. Also, we now know Ryan Beard's house was completely covered in cat shit. So that's a nice little info to know. That does not mean I was in danger of being neglected by my parents. You are literally justifying the CPS call now. Notice how these fucking debate perverts are stupid as fuck. I never said it was justified. I said I am neutral on it because I don't know. And that's the only reasonable position, is to be neutral. Now, I've heard rumors that make me believe it may have been justified, but I don't repeat them, and my official position is that I'm neutral. Because the rumors, I don't have firsthand knowledge, they're just rumors, so I don't spread them, okay? And so I say, I don't know, because that's the only reasonable position, because I've never been to Ethan's house. I don't know his children. I'm not their doctor or their housekeeper. To anyone outside of your bubble, this makes you look totally insane. What? What? I said, are you a trained CPS agent? Ringworm is very common, but that can be a reason to suspect neglect. Just because something is common doesn't mean that it's not something to be concerned about. I think you have debate pervert brain. You don't have expertise on this subject. Stop. I have done more research into the topic than you have, which is why I know the statistics about the danger of Giardia. I guess if you ever have a kid someday and they catch the flu that you think is totally justified for people online to call CPS on you, glad you've made that clear. What? Ryan Beard, debate pervert brain. This is like right out of the Destiny playbook, which is invent some completely new thing, say a ridiculous point, and then like, what? No, what I said is, if a child has parasites, that might be reason for the position for it to be called. But since I don't know in this specific instance if that were true, I am neutral on it. Similarly, I would want you all to be neutral, meaning not call CPS, if I had a child who got sick with the flu one day. And I also wouldn't come on here and be like, man, my child caught the flu. I took them to a place with a bunch of people that had the flu and they caught the flu. And now Vio has the flu. And like, everybody's like, oh, I don't want to catch the flu from you. And it's like, oh, it's really hard to catch the flu. I have to sneeze into your mouth. You know what I mean? Like, that would be the equivalent. You didn't respond to my post. You are not a child welfare expert. You have no firsthand knowledge of the condition of the home. You have no idea of the identity of the CPS call. You are simply wrong on every relevant detail. This is what a normal person sounds like, by the way. Neither are you, dumbass, which is why it's good to have an expert, in this case CPS, mediate and analyze on our behalf. All right, let me know if your kids ever get sick with a minor illness so I could make sure to tell the internet to call CPS on you. And then CPS wouldn't respond because there would be they would go, that is a fake CPS call. Good to see you advocating fake CPS calls because you're wrong on shit.
Guy Ryan Beard following me around everywhere. So I've had this guy Ryan Beard following me around everywhere, screeching about how I'm an anti-Semite for like at least 3 years now. And so I decided to like look into a little bit about what he has to say about Israel-Palestine to see, on what basis he might be making such accusations, what he actually knows about the topic. And it's so much worse than I thought it could ever be. Like, trust me, you're about to see something absolutely incredible.
Let me repeat that one more time. She said that America is superior to Israel. That is just one step removed from saying white people are superior to Jewish people. If you don't...
What? There's a lot of problems with America being an imperialist state and all, but we don't have second-class citizens based on race or religion here. We at least... I mean, not by the law, right? I mean, we do in practice, but we don't on the actual books. In Israel, they have apartheid in their laws.
don't want people to think that you're a white supremacist, you probably shouldn't say that your country is
Thanks for the optics advice.
superior to Israel. Because you know who else thought that their country was superior to Israel?
There was no Israel in 1933. What are you talking about? What is this? It's like a peanut butter bar that you've broken up and put into a bowl. I'll take it. Looks good. What is it? VO said she made sweet potato blondies. They're supposedly healthier. All right, sweet potato blondies. That sounds good. In fairness to Riot, he did retract this and say it was stupid and he was ignorant back then, though obviously he was very confident while being like, what the fuck are you talking about? Ethan is having reassuring thoughts of you assassinating him.
Know your sizes in advance. Please be kind to our staff. They're working hard to make this a great experience. Can't wait to see you there. There that is, guys. Very exciting stuff.
To keep the earth clean and do what he was doing.
Let's keep the earth clean, guys. And would-be assassins, we will not be there. Thank you.
Wait, why would you say me? Why did you say me?
Mike from PA, I will not be there.
He's scared of me? What? Ethan, I am a small arms expert in the military. I don't need to go to the Teddy Fresh. You know what I mean? It's like, what are you talking about, man? Like, I have no ill will for you. Other than you being a pathetic fucking loser. I want you to keep attacking me. I love milking you for money. I'm at 4,000 live concurrent viewers in May of 2025. I thought that this was going to be a period of like decline for my channel because politics is less relevant in odd years. There's less elections, and so normies pay less attention to it. I thought that I was going to have to kind of be struggling at the 2K number for probably a year because of that. You have given me such massive fucking promotion that you have helped double the size of my stream. It's probably more like 60%. But like, I'm having a massive growth period and sustaining it for months and months and months because of you. I want you to stay healthy. I want you to start working out. You know, I want you to wear sunscreen when you go outside. I want you healthy and rested. You are the legend. You have helped me more than anyone else could possibly help me, except for maybe Hassan. Thank you, Ethan Klein. You are my best fucking friend. Making fun of you and laughing at your flailing is making me hundreds of thousands of dollars. I want you to stay safe. You are awesome. Thank you. I'm now getting to the point where like I'm gonna be able to afford a home. I'm gonna be able to pay off my law school student loans. Like I have health insurance. Like, you are my best fucking friend. Thank you. I got a doctor's appointment this afternoon. You are building me up. Thank you. Keep it up, bitch.
Thank you, Ethan Klein. You are my best friend. You are the rent payer.
Is Ethan calling you out after saying would-be assassin slander? Yes! This is defamation of the extreme degree. Honestly, how the fuck is he not banned for that? Honestly. He's basically telling his community to like do shit to me to defend him. Like, I laugh at it, but in all seriousness, like, this is a rule-breaking content.
You are the legend. Thank you, Ethan Klein. You are my best friend.
BE claims that he made this song and is pissed his idea was stolen. I think he may have come up with the original idea. This is a more polished version. This is the problem with Bad and Panada. Bad and Panada, you need to understand that remixing and derivation is elements of art. We of course gave you credit. You're in the thing. We love you.
You are the rent payer. You are the legend. Thank you, Ethan Klein, defender of genocide.
And by the way, Hassan and I have been listening to the Thank You USA song for 6 years. We've been listening to it for years and years and years before Bad and Panada did, at least publicly. We've been listening to it for a long time. So it's not like he made us aware of the song. Like, so that's just also not true.
Helping small creators grow a larger size. In 2025, promoting the left side.
wasn't actually mad. He wasn't actually mad. You're right. Badapanada wasn't actually mad. He's awesome. We love Badapanada. Don't allow anybody to drama bait between me and Badapanada. I literally, and I mean this with my whole chest, the only time I've ever disagreed with Badapanada, fully and truly, was when he said that GDF was like signaling to anti-Semites by reading the Israel lobby. The Israel lobby is from Harvard. It's not anti-Semitic. It doesn't signal to anti-Semites. It doesn't have, it is not like, it's not saying the US isn't responsible. It's saying that Israel has created a system that causes the US to support Israel even in situations that are net negative for the US interests, which is objectively true on the facts. So he's just wrong on that. The Israel Lobby is a book I recommend everybody read. It's not in any way anti-Semitic. He's wrong. And I actually think that's his biggest error he's ever made. I think that's the thing he's the most wrong on. Of all the things he's wrong on, that is the #1 thing he's most wrong on.
And Mike, thank you, Ethan Klein. You are my best friend. You are the rent payer. You are the legend. Thank you, Ethan Klein. You are my best friend. You are the rent payer. You are the legend.
What a fucking bitch. Ethan Klein is such a bitch, dude. What a bitch. All right, anyway, let's go back to making fun of Ryan Beard. Dog, no matter how you cut it, having a child so exposed to dog shit that got Giardi as kind of batshit, it seems like in and of itself to warrant a call. Spoken as a dad of 3 that had a dog, not once do they ever come close to doing that. It's not normal. No, it's not batshit at all. If you actually look at the statistics, Giardi has an incredibly common infection and not dangerous whatsoever. It isn't dangerous if treated, but it's a sign a child might be being neglected. What do you not understand about this? If a child is at school and they stink, and they're covered in ringworm, and they have uncontrollable diarrhea because they have parasites, it doesn't mean they're gonna die, but it might cause the teacher to be like, I'm concerned that this child is not being, is not being taken care of. And that is what CPS is for, to go and investigate to make sure. It is not a coercive institution always. It can be, and there are times when it's oppressed racial and ethnic minorities in this country. But when you're talking about white people in Beverly Hills, CPS is not a dangerous threat to them. Like, come on. What the fuck are you talking about, dude? Are they legit? This is a Hasan version of it. Awesome. Anyway, Ryan Beard, you're dumb as fuck. Holy shit. Badapanada is based. GDF is based. The Israel Lobby is a very important book everyone should read. Okay, moving on. I had my fun. What's the next thing we want to talk about? Oh, the poll. Okay. Democratic voters prefer populism over abundance. This is like the funniest shit. Mike was right again. I just had by the way, chat, I just had a 2-hour conversation with someone offline about this exact point, and they were like, lefties they're fucking up by attacking abundance. It's gonna be so popular. And I'm like, no, it's not. And to have this poll drop, I want to DM this person this poll and just be like, I was right, LOL.
Greetings.
Yeah, we watched this. I gave Badapanada credit for saying thank you, Ethan Klein. Everybody gives him credit for that. You're right. Could you summarize what abundance is real quick? I'm unfamiliar. Basically, abundance is a movement to refresh neoliberalism in the Democratic Party, which is basically the idea that what we need to do is reduce regulations and give money to rich real estate developers with tax breaks, and that'll solve the housing crisis. And that the main problem we have in our society is things like environmental regulations, organized labor, environmental groups, and regulations. So if we repeal regulations and we target organized labor and environmental groups, that will get us abundance. That's what it means. So it's basically just republicanism. It's like 1995 Republican Party. The goal is to make the two-party duopoly Reaganites versus fascists with no other alternatives. Yes, this has been explained to this. Let me talk about this. It's David Graeber, radical centrists.
The kind of politics we have now
where the left is represented by this kind of Obama-Macron-style centrism, where you're both for the market and for bureaucracy at the same time. It's kind of horrible, right? The only possible appeal of that kind of politics is, well, at least they're not Nazis, right? So what they want is the left to be this kind of mishmash of bureaucratic market centrism and the right to be outright fascist. To set the ball rolling in an actual left direction will make that centrism look like utterly unappealing. In France, sometimes they talk about the extreme center, and I think that's a fitting phrase. It strikes me that what's called the moderates are the most immoderate people possible. And the reason why they're so uncompromising, I think, is because they realize they don't have a lot of positive arguments. They're not really for anything. I mean, somebody like Obama, the reason he worked was because he looked like the kind of guy who would have a vision. He acted like a visionary. He had the intonation. He had the way of standing and looking into the distance like he really believed in something. And it shows you something about just how much visionary politics has been killed. It didn't even seem to occur to people to ask what his vision actually was, right? Because it turns out, insofar as he had a vision, his vision was not to have a vision. He believed in pragmatism and compromise and so forth. And that's what the center has been reduced to. It's become this pure set of performative symbols. And at the same time, you get to feel morally superior, which is ultimately what centrism, what liberal centrism is all about, is the ability to feel better than other people.
I think this is actually a really important point, and this is the primary way that centrists on places like TikTok exist. It's not about actually talking about an identical group of policies that you're going to implement that are going to help people. It's performative care and then a threat of the right. It's like, you don't care about trans people because you are telling the Democrats they need to do X, Y, and Z to protect trans kids, because if the Democrats lose, then you'll get Republicans. They really hate trans people. Or you don't care about immigrants, even though the Democrats are betraying immigrants by voting for all the Republican bills, right? It's not a concrete set of policies that are actually going to improve your life, right? There's no like, okay, let's measure how your life is doing. Is your life better? Are you housed? And can you afford your bills? And is your life improving? That is out the window. It is, we made a gesture. We passed the biggest bill. It's not a measurement of like, what is America's actual electricity mix? What is America's actual CO2 emissions? How many high speed chargers for electric vehicles have been built? How many new, public transit systems have been opened up or expanded? How many, like, we're not getting actual measurable shit. It's just a gesture toward it.
So there is a kind of a symbiosis whereby the right wing pretend to be stupid, like George Bush II sort of perfected this, like, I'll act like a yokel. All of the liberals will make fun of me as an idiot. Everybody who resents the sort of cultural elite for having monopolized all the good jobs will look at them sneering at me and say, yeah, I bet those guys feel the same way about me as they feel about Bush. I'll vote for Bush. Ha ha ha, stick it to him, right? That shtick, Trump is just doing it in a more extreme version of the same thing. Johnson's doing the same thing. You act like an idiot, the people who are the sort of educated elite make fun of you, and it works. Now, who's really the idiot, right? People keep falling for the same stupid trick over and over and over again. So there's a symbiotic relationship between these centrists, who are just sort of sneering elitists, and these guys who are the scam artists who pretend to be yokels, who pretend to be idiots, or pretend to be fascists. They're not even real fascists. They're kind of phony fascists. They are trying to set up a situation where those are the only two viable political choices, because they both feed off and complement one another.
The good ones always die young. The good die young, chat. Democratic voters prefer a populist message over one that focuses on an abundance agenda, according to a new poll by Demand Progress. On the economic front, some elected officials like Jake Auchincloss would embrace a vision of the abundance agenda that liberal writers Ezra Klein and Derek Thompson lay out in a new book titled Abundance. Klein gave voice to the abundance argument at a policy retreat for Senate Democrats this month. Look at how these centrists get shoved down people's throats in DC. Do you think I would be given a voice to the abundance argument? Do you think Hasan would be able to give voice to the populist argument at a Senate retreat? Think about that. Other party leaders would have focused their energy on challenging President Trump on the populist front. Think of Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer trying to dare Republicans to vote against tax cuts for billionaires. Oh my God. Chuck Schumer, guys. The survey of 1,200 registered voters by Demand Progress, a progressive advocacy organization, was designed to supply some hard data for the debate. It defined the abundance argument by starting off with this sentence. The big problem is bottlenecks and make it harder to produce housing, expand energy production, or build new roads and bridges. The populist argument was described as, the big problem is that big corporations have way too much power over our economy and our government. 55.6% of all voters preferred the populist argument, compared to 43.5% who said they would be more likely to vote for a candidate who offered the abundance argument. So in other words, Republicans like it. Left-wingers and independents like populism. The preferences were even stronger among Democratic and independent voters. 47.2% of Democrats reacted positively to the populist argument, compared to 39.6% for Republicans. It was 55.4% for independents. Given a direct choice, 59% of Democrats preferred the populist argument, compared to just 16.8% liking the abundance one. What these voters want is clear: a populist agenda that takes on corporate power and corruption. Now, here's the thing. I want to give an olive branch to people who think that there is some sort of argument here. I think that politically, the thing that matters is actually producing housing and expanding energy production and new roads and bridges. But people have to know you did it. It can't just be like, oh, this just kind of happened in the ether. You have to have your face on every single bridge saying, this is Mike's bridge. Mike from PA's bridge. Every time someone goes into a fucking building, people should know you helped build that fucking building. You have to claim credit for the shit that you do. Trump is very smart about this. Republicans are smart about this. They claim credit for shit they're against. So what matters is obviously the material conditions. But people have to actually connect that improvement with you, not just think they did it. It's like when somebody said, it's like when a boomer tells you, I paid for my own college. I paid for my own college. And it's like, well, the state paid for 90% of tuition for boomers and now only pays 20% of tuition for millennials and Gen Z. So yeah, boomers paid their tuition, but 90% of their tuition bill was paid by the state before they ever got it. So they think they paid for it all, when in reality, they paid for 10%. And so, but in their mind, they're an independent, I am a self-reliant, independent individual. And it's all bullshit because they don't actually understand that it was very cheap because the state was paying for it. Is Taylor coming on stream this week? I don't think she's going to come on this week. I think we're going to do next week. I think she said she was like unavailable. And I'm also not like, I have to be in the mood to have a guest on. You know what I mean? Like I have to be vibing. It's not just the other people. It's also me.
Anyway, you might have heard of this idiotic shit, like neoliberals.
This is how you do the shit. Look at this ad.
I'm Assemblyman Zohran Mamdani, and I'm running for mayor to freeze the rent for every rent-stabilized tenant.
Wait, you're gonna freeze my rent?
Yes.
Did I hear rent freeze?
Yes! This guy's gonna freeze the rent. No hike?
None.
This guy's gonna freeze the rent.
It's true. As your next mayor, I will freeze your rent.
Paid for by Zohran for NYC.
When you think of the Russian Revolution, they had a saying, they had a chant. Peace, land, bread. Peace, land, bread. It wasn't some long diatribe on dialectical materialism and the necessity for a dictatorship of the proletariat to overturn the, to seize the means. It was peace, land, bread. Freeze the rent. It's bam. And also notice a three-word sentence is pretty politically important. What do you think of when you think of Donald Trump 2016? Tell me what you think of when you think Donald Trump 2016. What's the first thing that pops into your head? Lock her up. Drain the swamp. Build the wall. Notice how they are very much rally chants. And those are things that we can, but also it's not just Trump. Yes, we can. Hope and change. Drill, baby, drill. Tax the rich. These, okay. Breaking news. Anyway.
I'm Assemblyman Zohran Mamdani, and I'm running for mayor to freeze the rent for every rent stabilizer.
Also, chat, notice his aesthetic. Notice his aesthetic. Well-fitting suit, trimmed short hair, looks clean, looks strong, looks in shape, very charismatic.
Tenant.
Wait, you're gonna freeze my rent?
Okay, cool. All right, let's watch this Bad Empanada video on it, because I like Bad Empanada and I want to promote him as much as I can.
Are trying to rebrand neoliberalism as the abundance movement. Because, you know, neoliberalism, liberalism, these are like not big words with the youth. So what they're saying now is we need abundance. What about if instead of saying, you know, the honest thing, we don't want anything to be taken away from rich people and given to poor people. What if instead of that we said, we want abundance, we want you to have more stuff. Like this is a rebrand of neoliberalism. I'm going to tell you why. What would it look like if philanthropy celebrated black abundance instead? Ooh, what is abundance? Let's check it out. Why is it like phrased around black lives, black? It's all black. It's like identity politics weaponized for neoliberalism. What a fucking joke. Okay, there's no way that's the actual official website. It's all about black people. That's like a side project they made to like appeal to black people or something, or like frame it in the identity politics vein. But basically, the thesis of these guys is we don't need to take away from rich people. We don't need to redistribute. What we need to do is build more, produce more, and that way you will get more. So there's no need for you to go against the rich, because the rich are working to make more for you. That is the thesis of this movement. Now, this is a completely insane thing to be talking about. For one simple reason, something called climate change. And you can see here Ezra Klein, who is like, I don't know who this guy is. He's like a Twitter guy, basically. He's no one. But he got famous because he posted on Twitter about he says, we have not made enough of the things that we need. That's his whole thing. The problem is not a lack of equality. The problem is a lack of more. So there's this problem with this idea. It's called climate change. And it's funny how neoliberals claim to be against climate change, claim to be like for dealing with it, when now they're just actively advocating to build more shit at a time when we very much need to not do that. The problem is not that we don't have enough stuff in the world. The world has more than enough stuff for everyone already. The problem is, it is the distribution. The problem is that you can't build more stuff because we legitimately actually have an existential threat on the horizon to human society as it currently exists at the very least. If we just keep building more and more stuff, if you build more stuff and your selling point is I'm going to build more stuff and give it to the people who don't have it rather than taking away from the people who have a ton more stuff than they actually need and give to those people, your selling point is that I want to end the world. That's what the argument you're making. You're arguing that you want to end the world as we know it rather than redistribute its resources from the people who have way more of the resources than they could ever use to those who don't. To those who actually need it, who have basically nothing. This is especially a ridiculous narrative because it's also coming in line with something that's even worse than just this narrative, which is the rapid rise of cryptocurrency and AI. These are two things that use ridiculous amounts of energy and provide literally no actual material benefit for the energy that are put into them. That this is happening at the same time that like AI is getting big, crypto is getting massive, and we have people just advocating to build more shit without thinking about the fact that we actually can only build a finite amount of shit for at least for a very long time, because there's not going to be any sort of grand energy transition to renewables anytime soon, at least not in the time frame that's needed. So we actually do need to build this shit for a while. We need to redistribute shit way better, especially given the rise of AI and cryptocurrency, which is an absolute disaster for energy consumption worldwide. And these fucking morons, in their quest, in their like genocidal death cult neoliberal ideology to ensure that the rich never have to give up anything, their new selling point is just make more, just make more, just make more. We can't just make more because that's going to end the world. You're contributing to a problem which is already out of fucking control. It's a problem that we had to deal with definitively 10, 20 years ago, and we've done absolutely nothing for that. The problem has only gotten worse. There's no mass global transition to renewables on the horizon, and you're just preaching to make things even worse when an actual solution is easy and on the table because we do have enough stuff. We make enough food. There is enough housing. The world has enough stuff. The world has enough houses. The world has enough resources. The world has enough food. You know, why do you want to make more stuff at a time when making more stuff means emitting more, which means accelerating the fucking end of human civilization scenario that is the present course that we are on regarding climate change. We already breached 1.5 degrees Celsius last year, and that was like the first tipping point. At this rate, if these guys get their fucking way with all the AI and the crypto bros who are aligned with them, oh my fucking god, we're breaching 2 degrees Celsius by 2030. Probably even before that. It's that fucking bad. Like the 2 degrees Celsius over pre-industrial levels is what I mean. If neoliberals ever convince you that they care about climate change, they were lying. The reason why this guy's doing this is because what he cares about is the rich keeping what they have. He's happy with your children basically being burned to a fucking crisp by the sun. Okay, that's not literally what's going to happen, but he's totally okay with like people in the third world basically being forced into a situation where they can't live and being massacred for their resources by the first world countries, being massacred en masse when they try to immigrate, when they become climate refugees. He's okay with that because he is okay with that. He does not care. Ezra Klein is totally fine with a nightmare climate change scenario because what he cares about is that rich people get to keep what they have. The problem for him is not that like there's rich people who own 20 fucking apartment buildings and half of the units in them are unoccupied. The problem for him is that we don't build more stuff instead of just seizing that from them and giving people that housing. Because taking that shit from them and giving it to people, do you know what that means? It means you don't have to emit more, because the construction is already done. In his scenario, you do emit more. So quite simply, these people have pretended to be against climate change forever when their actual actions show that they are 100% for it. They are for climate change. What they are against is actually doing anything to fight it. What they are against is taking anything from rich people to fight it. What they are against is taking anything from rich people at all for any reason, even when it's obviously fucking logical, because there's no housing shortage. What there is a distribution problem. These people know that. They know it 100%. And they will sooner end the world than deal with it because they want to keep what they have and they want to deprive you of any of like the most basic material needs that you have. And they will end the world in the name of doing that. That is what the abundance movement is all about.
I mean, that's exactly what I said when it first popped up, and there's really nothing more to say. Like, it is what it is. And the important thing to understand about abundance is it's the attempt to finally destroy the New Deal once and for all. Things like organized labor, things like regulation. There are good regulations. There is times when organized labor is doing a bad thing. Like, these are real problems that do exist, which is why we need to have national plans. That's why we shouldn't have so many veto points all the time. And we shouldn't have this obsession with localism. There's this like pseudo-anarchist obsession with small. Small doesn't equal good. Fathers could beat their children. Just because you have a household that has a couple people in it doesn't mean it's just. Justice is justice. Smallness isn't justice. Vetoes aren't inherently justified. We shouldn't be lowering, we should operate for the collective good. And sometimes that's going to involve inconveniencing individuals. And we have to be okay with that. As long as they're treated fairly, as long as they are compensated, as long as they are treated justly, and the minimum disruption is done, that nonetheless, that still may require some people to be inconvenienced for the greater good. That's just reality. And so, this is something that there's a lot of left-wingers online. Candidate, Zohran. All right, let's do it. We've got a Zohran interview because he makes me excited. So instead of abundance, this is the alternative. Actual abundance, actual leadership, actual change.
Zohran Mamdani, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. So this is, you have been surging in the polls lately. Tell our viewers just a little bit about yourself. You were born in Uganda, but you said you moved here when you were 7 years old. Help explain to our viewers who you are.
Absolutely. So I was born in Kampala, Uganda, in East Africa. Moved to New York City when I was 7, grew up in Morningside Heights, went to Bronx Science, and now I represent Astoria and Long Island City in the State Assembly. I'm in my 3rd term, and as of a few days ago, we'd been in this race for 6 months, and as you've said, we have surged. In that time, we found that New Yorkers are hungry for a different kind of politics. They're hungry for a politics that puts working people first, and that's what our campaign is doing to win a city that New Yorkers can actually afford.
Exactly. And you're a democratic socialist, the only democratic socialist running in the race. So what does that mean for you?
To me, that means that every New Yorker has what they need to live a dignified life, that it's local government's responsibility to provide that. And I think when you ask New Yorkers in their day-to-day, do they believe in things like public transit, public education, they agree with it. It's just that so often these kinds of ideas have been caricatured as if they're beyond what people actually want, when in fact it's exactly what they want.
So you have a whole list of priorities, and I'm going to just list a few of them because they're all that could fit on this graphic here. But you want to freeze a rent for rent-stabilized apartments, make buses fast by building priority bus lanes and make buses free, provide free universal childcare, create a Department of Community Safety, and build a network of city-owned grocery stores. So we're going to pull a few of those out here and talk about them. So first, for the free childcare for every New Yorker aged 6 weeks to 5 years. That sounds great, but who's going to pay for it?
So we've actually put out a platform that outlines exactly how we'd pay for not only that part of the agenda, but the entire agenda. We would raise $10 billion a year in two key ways. The first is raising taxes on the most profitable corporations in New York State to that of the level of New Jersey. New Jersey has a corporate tax rate of 11.5%. In New York, we're at 7.25%. If we match that, that's $5 billion. Then raising income taxes on the top 1% of New York City earners. New Yorkers who make $1 million a year or more by just a flat 2% increase. This is a rounding error for New Yorkers who make that much money, but for the entire city, including those same New Yorkers, this would be transformative. And the final $1 billion from that 9 to make it 10 is by actually bringing good government back to City Hall. Procurement reform, hiring fiscal auditors, and ensuring that we're collecting the money that we're owed. Because what we see is when you want to fight for working people, people say you can't afford it, but actually the solutions are right here in front of us.
If you tax corporations and people the 1%, how do you ensure that they don't leave New York?
So when I first came into the State Assembly, this is what I was hearing as well, as we were fighting to raise revenue to fund our city's schools. And we had a governor then, Andrew Cuomo, who didn't want to raise any revenue, who wanted to leave our schools in the state that they were. But here's the truth about corporate tax law. It applies to any corporation that does business in New York, not that's headquartered in New York. So if that corporation moves, they're still subject to the same tax laws. And ultimately, our economy is so strong, $1.3 trillion, that no one is going to cease doing business. And then, in that same year when I came into the Assembly, we overcame Andrew Cuomo's objections to tax his donors and raised about $4 billion a year to fund our schools. And what we saw is that there was no exodus of millionaires. We actually have more millionaires today than we did then. What we did see, though, is an exodus of working-class New Yorkers who couldn't afford housing, childcare, groceries. And what this would do is take $25,000 a year off the backs of working parents who are currently having to pay more to put their 2-year-old into childcare than they would to send their 18-year-old to CUNY. That's just unacceptable. And we've seen that in Quebec when they did this, they saw a 10-to-1 return on their economic investment.
You also want to create a Department of Community Safety, and it would have a budget of roughly $1 billion, consist of mental health teams that respond to 911 calls, and have outreach teams at 100 subway stations. So first, which of these 911 calls would these mental health teams respond to?
The ones that are clearly New Yorkers calling in need of an intervention in a mental health crisis. I'll give you one example. I sat with the family of Win Rosario, a young New Yorker who was in the throes of a mental health crisis, called 911 himself to ask for assistance. 2 police officers were sent who had been trained in mental health response, and they killed him within 3 minutes. That is something that does not serve anyone in that situation. He is someone his family is still grieving, and it doesn't leave our city safer. And what we've seen is that across the country, there have been these very approaches that have been successful, whether we're talking about in Eugene or Olympia or Denver. This approach that we're speaking about is evidence-backed. And that's what New Yorkers deserve. They deserve outcomes. They deserve to actually have the safety they've been promised, but they haven't been delivered. And at the core of this is when we ask New Yorkers, where do you feel least safe? They often say the subway system. And that's why we've said we're going to have teams of dedicated outreach workers at the 100 subway stations with the highest levels of homelessness and mental health crises to intervene and provide assistance in the moments when New Yorkers need it most.
You know, we know that many people going through mental health issues are not violent in any sort of way, but on rare occasions there are instances where there is maybe some violence. How do you ensure the safety of these mental health teams if they're in the subway and something does go wrong?
You know, they can always call the police. That is a part of this program, and we've seen that, for example, in one of the programs I was citing elsewhere in the country, about 80% of the calls are resolved without police assistance. And there is a small segment that requires requires it, and for that, it is possible. But ultimately, what we're doing right now is we're taking the police, who have a critical role to play in creating public safety, and we're tasking them with every single failure of the social safety net. And that's preventing them from doing their actual jobs, which is dealing with major categories of crime. And what I've heard from so many New Yorkers is a concern that the clearance rates of those crimes are so low, and part of it is because police officers don't even have time to focus on it anymore.
Would the $1 billion for this department come from the police budget?
No, not a dollar would come from the police budget.
Perfect. And then lastly, one of your platforms to build city-owned grocery stores in each one of the 5 boroughs. It's really gotten a mixed bag response here. You know, I think a lot of people who don't really know anything about policy, it's probably one of my most frustrating things when I talk to left-wingers, is they know absolutely nothing about how radical he's being compared to the status quo, and neither do the voters. Right? Like, they know absolutely fucking nothing. And the reality is that under the standard formula, the cops would get massive year-over-year increases. If he just comes into office and doesn't cut anything, but just holds them still, it is, in effect, a massive cut. He is defunding the police. And what people don't understand is, politically, it's a lot easier to do that. That's actually the policy Republicans often pursue, which is you just hold things that you don't like, but you know politically you can't cut still, and you let inflation and the fact that you're avoiding increases result in the cut. And then you take that money and you use it for something else that you actually care about, and you create a new program with a new constituency that supports it. That's called smart politics. But for a lot of leftists, they've been out of power for so long. The idea of doing smart politics in a left-wing direction is not, they want you to do something that, you know, so it's a soundbite for Twitter, but they actually don't want you to have power to successfully be able to use these tactics in our own advantage. And that's the thing that really bothers me, is it's like, bro, you're telling people to vote for Kamala Harris, and you have somebody here who is going to do radical shit you want, like do state-owned grocery stores and freeze the rent and do public housing and do all sorts of shit, free buses, and you're like, he didn't say he was going to do this in a way that is politically damaging. I can't believe it. What a fake. Like, bro, you don't know your shit. People want to see everyone have access.
Chill when? Oh my God. Chat, I forgot to chill. And it's 4 hours into the stream. No. Vanilla Mace Clips channel with 1.3 million likes across 2 videos uploaded less than 24 hours ago.
Would you date Moist Critical? Yes.
Oh God. Don't show me that clip. Don't show me that.
As to healthy food, and you propose like lowering costs by using city land or buildings, building food, buying food wholesale, and being exempt from property taxes. So I guess, you know, how would this proposal work, you know, actually, you know, foots on the ground?
Look, I think some of the critique I've heard have been from people like John Katzimatidis, who runs Gristedes and is making quite a good bit of money off of New Yorkers in this moment. What I've heard from more New Yorkers, however, is that whether they're making $40,000 or $200,000, when they go to the grocery store, they feel that sticker shock, that the same items they could comfortably buy years ago are now seemingly out of reach. And I look at the example in Kansas, where they have a municipal-owned grocery store. I look at the feasibility study in Chicago, which found that we could do this in an urban setting. And I think about, why should New Yorkers not have that? Why should they not have not only access, but the ability to buy goods that are within their price range? So the core of this is cheaper groceries as a guarantee. The cost of this is $60 million to set up 1 store in each borough. So that's 5 stores as the pilot program. Now, that should be compared to the city's existing program called City Fresh, where they're set to spend $140 million subsidizing corporate grocery stores without any requirement for lower prices, any requirement for collective bargaining, or any requirement that they even accept SNAP or WIC. So we would take less than half of the money the city's already set to spend and actually deliver results.
From my understanding, it seems like Chicago just recently decided not to go with the city-run grocery store and maybe do like a public market sort of a thing instead. And then the Kansas store, it required, it seems, from my understanding, a lot of volunteer work, donations to sort of get it going.
You know, what we are seeing in our city is an incomparable capacity to deliver on this kind of a promise. And I am confident that by putting city government behind a actual tangible plan to deliver cheaper groceries, we would be able to deliver that without the need of volunteers, but rather through the power of the public sector.
So now critics have also brought up your stance on Israel, and Israel usually isn't a topic for a mayoral race, but with this year, with everything going on, I know a lot of people have critiqued your stance, and so I just wanted to get you on the record where you stand and give you a chance to respond. So, 7 days after the Hamas terror attack in Israel, you were arrested for protesting outside Senator Chuck Schumer's office. Why did you feel the need to get involved so early and so quick after this terror attack?
So I had already said then, as I say now, that October 7th was horrific and it was a war crime. And I was invited by Jewish New Yorkers to attend that protest. It was actually organized by thousands of Jewish New Yorkers. And I stood with them outside to make clear that their tragedy, their immense suffering, should not be used as a justification for the creation of more of that. And what we were seeing even that quickly was an immense amount of a military attack that was killing tens of and hundreds and thousands of Palestinians, innocent civilians. And at the core of my position about Israel, Palestine, any place in the world is consistency and international law and human rights. Because I believe that justice, freedom, safety...
Wow, look how they're showing how... look how good he's doing. Look how good he's doing. They're bringing up clips of destroyed civilian buildings as he's talking about it. He looks so reasonable.
Those are things that should be applied to all people. And sometimes when you say that, you're caricatured in ways that have nothing to do with what you've actually said.
So do you believe that Israel has a right to statehood? And if you're elected mayor, would you, how would you have responded to some of the Palestinian protests that have been happening on college campuses here in the city?
I believe that Israel has a right to exist. I've said so, and I will continue to say so. And I believe that the First Amendment is a cherished right of this country and is so much of what makes me proud to be an American. I think that we've seen that as something that is under attack by the Trump administration, and it requires us to stand up for our Constitution and our New Yorkers, while also making very clear that these protests are things that we should always ensure they are within the bounds of that First Amendment, and that's what I have seen by and large.
Now, you also were the first mayoral candidate to hit the fundraising cap,
yes.
And you just released your first TV ad. So we're going to take a look at it real quick here and discuss.
It's because corrupt politicians like Eric Adams and Andrew Cuomo have sold us out to billionaires and corporations, rigging the economy against us. Now, Cuomo's running for Adams' second term. I'm Assemblymember Zohran Mamdani, and I have a different vision.
So you have been great at social media, great at these videos. I've seen you go viral multiple times now. And you really kind of hit in this TV ad, at least, on former Governor Andrew Cuomo. Tell me more about your goal with this ad.
I want to introduce Andrew Cuomo as the governor that he was, not the governor that he says that he was. And there's a clear difference here, where so much of his reputation is a mythology that he helped to burnish with public dollars, even as he received a $5 million advance for writing about his leadership in a crisis which sent at least 15,000 New Yorkers to their death in nursing homes. And so the opening of this ad is those facts. This is a governor who cut Medicaid. This is a governor who stole hundreds of millions of dollars from the MTA. This is a governor who's been credibly accused of of sexual harassment by more than 10 women, and introducing him as really running for Eric Adams' second term, because that's what this is. And then in contrast, our campaign, a campaign for people to actually be able to afford the city that they call home.
He is leading by double digits right now, but you are second, at least, in the race. A lot of people are saying this is a two-person race right now. What are your goals over the next 2 months to close that gap?
You know, what is so exciting to me is we're in second place, even though 50% of New Yorkers still don't know who I am or what we're fighting for. And that's an opportunity, because it is so much easier to introduce yourself to someone than convince them to feel otherwise. 100% of New Yorkers know who Andrew Cuomo is, but less than 50% support him. And if we can get to that same 100% of name recognition, that's our path. And that's why this ad is so critical, because we have $7.5 million, thanks to the 18,000 people who contributed to our campaign, to spend in these next 2 months and make clear that we have a vision for making the city affordable. We're going to freeze the rent, make buses fast and free, deliver universal childcare, and we're the only mayoral candidate that aired an ad and the Knicks went on to win that same game.
Now, you have a goal of knocking on 1 million doors. How many doors have you knocked on, and what's been your favorite part?
230,000 doors so far across the 5 boroughs, thanks to the work of more than 15,000 volunteers. And what's so exciting to me is oftentimes in politics, we think about it as it's a competition between individuals. This campaign is about more than me. This campaign is about New Yorkers seeing themselves in the struggle for a city that they can actually afford. And I've had people come up to me and say, you knocked on my door last night. And I said, actually, I was in Albany. So that was someone else. That was one of our volunteers. And that's what this campaign is. It's about everyone.
And exactly like you mentioned, you're splitting your time also between
Yes.
the state budget right now, negotiations up there in Albany. Thank you so much for taking the time to answer these tough questions and really address some of the concerns that New Yorkers have right now.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
A leader deserves to do so. Thank you.
All right. Zohran's volunteer have knocked over 600,000 doors now. He's already clarified the right to exist comment after this. Yeah, by the way, here's my position on the right to exist thing. When people ask you do you support the right of Israel to resist, the only response a politician could say would be Israel exists or Israel has a right to exist. Because the moment you say Israel doesn't have a right to exist, the people are going to say, you want to kill all Israelis? You want to support a genocide of the Jews? So anybody who says like Israel doesn't have a right to exist is basically going to be called an anti-Semite. And then everyone's going to say, Mamdani calls for war on Israel. And you'll be sitting there trying to defend yourself for a million fucking years. If you fixate on that, you're insane. Now, what you should say is Israel exists. Israel is a member of the United Nations, and we all accept that as a fact. What I want to see is Israel to follow the rules and the treaties that they have signed, and for the United States to support international law, humanitarian law, and make sure it's enforced. That is what you need to say. Guys, I think a lot of people are social media brained. I think they're social media brained. Yeah, it's not worth a soundbite. I'm sure he thinks close to the right wing. Or close to the right thing, yes. Of course he does. Of course he does. He's running a political campaign. Of course he fucking does. He's saying they're doing a genocide. He supports BDS. He has been there from the fucking beginning. You're insane if you don't agree with that. And it would be a huge fumble to not support him. I think he was smart to take the time to talk about a real topic. The other thing they're trying to do is Americans don't really think we're involved with Israel. They think what's going on in Israel is bad and they want it to stop. But a lot of Americans don't have the knowledge that we're doing it. They don't know that. We're doing the genocide. He was arrested for protesting less than a week after the 7th. Yeah, exactly. How important is that the next mayor of New York City has a pro-Israel stance? Somewhat important, very important, 32%. Very somewhat unimportant, 45.9%. Dem primary voters, 50.9% unimportant, 30.5% important. So because people don't realize that the U.S. is doing it, and it's our job to tell them that they are. Teamsters and Cuomo, oh God.
The DSI guy saying, DSA guy, I should say.
Free housing.
How do you promise free? Who pays for that? Because you've got 123 billionaires that live in New York City. You got 350,000 millionaires. Are they going to pay for it?
Yeah, well, they pay for everything. Under these plans, everything is free. Everything's free. Housing's free. Everything's free. And we'll tax the millionaires. What they don't appreciate is you can't have a socialist.
And I'm all for taxing millionaires and billionaires, just so you know.
Yeah. But here's the reality. You can't have a socialist state in a capitalist nation. In other words, if New York became a socialist economy, everything free, we tax the rich at an exorbitant rate. The rich will move to Massachusetts or New Jersey or Florida, which is what they're doing now, by the way.
They won't move to Massachusetts. It's just as bad.
Yeah. Before socialism. And we have 1% of the wealthiest New Yorkers pay 50% of the taxes. So you lose a fraction of that 1%. You have a major financial problem. So there is no theory of a socialist state where you're going to sit in this state and pay 17% income tax when you can move 20 miles away or you can move to Florida and pay zero, right? It doesn't work. You'd have to have a socialist nation, which we don't.
I agree. We need a socialist nation. Notice how this is devoid of any actual facts. Like, I think if you're persuaded by this, you are actually low IQ. Something like buses has a certain cost. What would it take to have free buses? How many drivers do we need? How many buses do we need? How many routes do we need? How much gas do they need? What's the maintenance on those buses? There is a number. There is a number. It costs X. Then there is how much tax revenue can we collect? What are our priorities? How much tax revenue collect? What can we collect? What can we save on? And once you have those things together, then then your budget tells you what your priorities are. And I think the richest country in the world could pay for buses. Every school district I ever went to in the suburbs had free school buses. They'd have school buses drive around and pick up all the kids in the fucking suburbs. How'd they afford that? And the buses would sit parked 99% of the time. How the fuck could they afford that? So the idea that it's like, oh, we can't do this is so ridiculous. It's so insane. It's so hard. It's like, no, it's not. It's a number. You are talking like a child.
What is your other opponent, the DSI guy, saying? DSA guy, I should say.
Free housing.
How do you promise free? Who pays for that? Because you've got 123 billionaires that live in New York City. You've got 350,000 millionaires. Are they going to pay for it?
Yeah, well, they pay for everything. Under these plans, everything is free. Everything's free. Housing's free. Everything's free. And we'll tax the millionaires. What they don't appreciate is you can't have a socialist.
And I'm all for taxing millionaires and billionaires, just so you know.
Yeah. But here's the reality. You can't have a socialist state in a capitalist nation. In other words, if New York became a socialist economy, everything free, we tax the rich at an exorbitant rate. The rich will move to Massachusetts or New Jersey or Florida, which is what they're doing now, by the way.
They won't move to Massachusetts. It's just as bad.
Yeah. Before socialism. And we have 1% of the wealthiest New Yorkers pay 50% of the taxes. So you lose a fraction of that 1%. You have a major financial problem. So there is no theory of a socialist state where you're going to sit in this state and pay 17% income tax when you can move 20 miles away.
I mean, it's just like ridiculous. Like this whole flight shit, it's never true. New York is the place people want to be. You want to live in New Jersey? You think the economics are coming from New Jersey? Insane. Okay. This is the fucking coolest shit I've ever seen. I had to show you guys this. So Trump has said that he's going to remove the visas of every Chinese student in America, which is absolutely one of the most evil things I've ever heard in my life.
I'm so lost. How do you know he's Hasan Abihid? He's wearing my merch. He's wearing limited edition Himbo Fitness merchandise.
This is one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
This Hasan
We are
Abihid
now
student
joined
was
by a
interviewed.
Harvard PhD student from China who's about to graduate from Harvard. Zealand Ma, thank you so much for being with us.
Oh! Let's go! Chinese Hasan Abihid with a PhD, rise up! Chinese Hasan Abihid with a PhD at Harvard University, rise up! Rise the f*** up!
Average Hasanabi viewer. Average Hasanabi viewer. Harvard PhD. Average Destiny viewer. Virgin incel in his parents' basement.
Let's go! Let's go!
Cambridge PhD here.
You
Nice,
graduate on Thursday, right? So this should be a celebration.
Look at how jacked he is! I'm so proud. I'm so proud. I'm so proud. Look at him. Look at him flexing
Oh my
his...
God, Tom, thank you for the 10 tier 1. Socialism for barbarism. Thank you for the 5. Chat, we are 49 subs away from the sub goal. Please consider supporting the stream by subscribing.
Biceps too.
Woo! Celebratory moment. How are you feeling?
I mean, definitely it feels less celebratory than I should feel. I feel a lot of uncertainty. I feel puzzled. I feel shocked.
Can you imagine educating someone to Harvard PhD level and then telling them to leave? It is one of the dumbest fucking things I've ever seen in my entire life. This explains America in a nutshell now. America is, we don't want no PhDs. Give me the idiots. We have a Homeland Security Secretary who doesn't know what habeas corpus is. Homeland Security, and they've never heard of the Magna Carta. We are living in Stupidville. Do you guys know that the reason why China has a space program and ICBMs is because America did this in the 50s? We kicked out one of NASA's most important scientists and experts because he was a Chinese left-winger. But he loved America and he lived in America and he learned all that he could in American schools because China was an ally of America in World War II, and he was chased out because of the Red Scare. And he went on to found basically Chinese aerospace. God, what is his name? I'm forgetting it. Chinese man who founded their space program. Google will tell me. Oh, yeah, here it is. I'm going to pronounce his name correctly, chat.
Jian Xuesen.
Zhang Shusen.
Jian Xuesen.
Zhang Shusen. Okay, Zhang Shusen. Okay, we did it. We're figuring it out. Zhang Shusen. I fucked it up already. He was an aerospace engineer and cybernicist who made significant contributions to the field of aerodynamics and establishing engineering cybernetics. I can't pronounce anything. I've got tongue twisters today. He achieved recognition as one of America's leading experts in rockets and high-speed flight prior to his returning to China in 1955 because of what? The Red Scare. The second Red Scare. Despite protests by his colleagues and without any evidence of the allegations, he was stripped of his security clearance. And he was deported. And you know what the Chinese did? They welcomed him back as a fucking hero. And they said, well, I'm sorry the West is so fucking racist. And the communists said, you will lead us to the future. And they made him the father of Chinese rocketry, the king of rocketry. He's one of the founding fathers of 2 bombs, 1 satellite. So they accused him of being a communist. They were racist as fuck against him. And he became the king. And he founded a technology university. He took everything he learned in America and he went to China and he helped revolutionize China. So the communists said, thank you for being racist. Thank you for doing the Red Scare. Thank you for deporting one of the most intelligent men to ever live. You fucking racist idiots. That's why China is now leapfrogging us in technology today, because our racism of these white mediocre Republicans is stopping us from entering the future. They're kicking out Harvard PhDs because of their nationality. That is insane.
To learn.
Wait, is this Top G, dude? Is this where we find out Top G's real identity? I kept saying he was like a white Maoist from Iowa, but is it? I have a friend in Harvard too who watches you, but not international. I mean, yes, college campuses are where I have the strongest foothold. Okay, that's not surprising. I mean, you've seen, bro thinks he's Charlie Kirk. Oh, why would you do that to me?
That, you know, because I'm a PhD student doing important research on how AI is transforming workplace. This is something that White House has labeled as a national priority. So it's definitely disheartening and impossible.
Hasan ever hit Nebraska? Wow, boring. Who cares? Hasan ever hit China? At least now we know who are the real unappreciated chatters.
To see the policy targeting the very people doing that work.
Right. Do you plan to stay in the U.S. to work after you graduate, or have President Trump's actions caused you to alter your plans at all?
So for now, I think until the hearing, my plan is to stay at the Harvard Business School to continue my research as a postdoc scholar with the D-Cube lab. But, you know, anything could happen in a hearing. And because of these uncertainties, that definitely...
Chad, I made someone who was like, somebody like messaged me like, Mike, do you want to fight me? Did you ever fight before? And I was chatting with them and they apologized to me. They just apologized and said that they like me now. Because I just chatted with them and I was like, yeah, sure.
Need to think about other ways to continue my research. And then, you know, I've also heard about my...
It's like one of those things where I sometimes forget that there are normal people who are just lied to about us by like Ethan Klein and Asmongold and Destiny, and they think that we're out there going like, kill these people, kill, which we don't do. We just believe in doing what's right, and they often agree with us. And like, that's why you can't allow Ethan Klein to pretend to be pro-Palestine, or Ryan Beard. If they're out there pushing the narratives that Destiny and Asmongold and Israel want, You are not pro-Palestine. You are a useful idiot. Do you know Q Anthony? Guess where he works now. Where does he work? Is he in China?
Friends, my colleagues, be it like,
I'll talk praxis. Thanks,
US
man.
citizen
Welcome in.
or not, have been considering elsewhere to conduct their research or even moving out of the country.
With me. Did you tell him you're one of my biggest fans? Did you tell him you're one of my biggest fans? He quit Twitter for 6 months and moved to China, the dream of all jaded leftists. I mean, I think if China figured out how to absorb some of this brain, like some of the brain drain, and it didn't all go to Europe, it would be very smart of them.
What do you say to those who may be thinking right now, I don't care what happens to a few people at this super rich Ivy League school? Explain why they should care.
Yeah, of course. I think, first of all, it's not a few people. So this attempted ban could be about, over 4,000 unionized workers at Harvard. That includes the graduate students who's teaching, who's grading, who's answering students' email 2 a.m. We are the people who make the university work. And it is also about this work visa called OPT, which is tied to the student visa. If the ban exists, proceeds, then this work permit will be canceled, and everyone in the class of 2023, 2024, 2025 will be impacted. And these people have been currently working full-time jobs at top companies, doing the kind of technological, scientific, and economic work that keeps American economy running. So as a brief statistics, in the year of 2024, there has been 1.1 million international students contributing to the U.S. economy. So that is not a small number. That will be a big threat to these workers.
No, that's such a great point. And I know you've also pointed out previously that you think about the type of work that you and other students like yourself are doing, who are also contributing to the workforce, as you point out. And you had said, the next breakthrough in AI, the work you're doing, the next cancer cure, the next Nobel Prize. If it doesn't happen here because you and others are...
James, did you say you were my biggest fan yet? Have you admitted it? Have you admitted it? No, I want him to like you. He will like you. In fact, it's much more likely that he will like you once he realizes you have good politics. You're never going to be able to communicate that on your own. I've heard you talk about politics. You'll say something, oh, never mind. I don't want to burn him.
Kicked out of this country.
Dude, we're infiltrating everything, okay? Hasan Abi heads, we are everywhere. It doesn't matter. You could be getting a business.
We have friends everywhere. I feel like we should adopt that as a saying. I have friends everywhere. Yo.
This PhD at Harvard. There's a Hasan Abi head right there. Fight Club, just nod along.
It's going to happen elsewhere. That is America's loss. Now, part of the president's order targeting Harvard specifically claims the university coordinates with the Chinese Communist Party, and Chinese nationals make up about a fifth of Harvard's foreign students. Do you and other Chinese students feel like...
She's like, do you communicate with the Chinese Communist Party?
You're being targeted or scapegoated?
Yeah, I definitely feel like we are being scapegoated.
Bro, I only met like 2 other Hasan Abi heads on college. What the Oh, yeah. Depends on which college campus you go to. Also, I'm willing to bet that there are far more. I should do a college campus tour, dude. Got cooked by slow? What does that mean?
We have followed every...
I'm so lost. How do you know he's a Hasan Abi head? He's wearing my merch. He's wearing limited edition Himbo Gym merchandise. He's wearing limited edition Himbo Fitness merchandise. My entire row in my PLSC class are Hasan Abi heads. Hell yeah.
Rule, we have got the visa, we have
basically what's happening is there is something that's happening with men. And what is happening with men is there is the men who are just completely denied all female contact or Like any kind of female attention, no female friendships, no dating. You know, the men who are just like left behind, and they enter in these spaces of only men, and they have no skills, no social skills, no friendships. And that's what I would call the Asmongoldian men. Like that is a growing ghetto of kind of incel men, right? A growing ghetto of incel men. And like a lot of those guys 20 years ago would have been normal. But because of things like, you know, COVID and the way we spend so much time on screens and social media, and we spend less time in person and people have less friendships, they have less chances and opportunities to find women to date. All that has to happen for a lot of guys is to just date a couple women and have them talk to you frankly about some of your behaviors and the way you carry yourself, or your hygiene, or your clothes, or whatever. And like, if you just kind of learn and talk to them and respect them, and you learn how to be normal around women, and you learn about, you know, the way women have to live, and you get empathy for women, like you become normal and you become attractive to other women. Just having a few relationships relatively young can really set you up for success. Whereas the other way, where if you're an Asmongoldian and you never have those things, you think women are so, you know, women are so focused on money and looks, and they don't care about other stuff that you think is important. It's wrong. Women care about your personality. They care about your passions. They care about your sense of humor. They care about your conversational skills. They care about your emotional intelligence. Like, women are not, like, men are far more fucking shallow than women are. It's easier to date women than it is to date men. Can you imagine dating straight men? That would be a fucking disaster. So like, being a man is fucking great. Like, what are you complaining about? Like, Jesus Christ. I know guys who are 5'4", weird looking, and they have girlfriends. They don't like, you know what I mean? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, the whole culture of incel internet shit is just wrong. And then there is this other side, which is the like Hasanabi side, the well-adjusted men side. And if you get pulled in here early, you're gonna make it, because people care enough about you to tell you the truth about stuff that you're doing that's fucked up. They're going to be like, hey, you know, your hygiene's a little off. You should take a shower.
That's all.
And they will do it from a position of love, not judgment, not shame. You'd be like, hey, you know, what you're wearing is a little bit cringe. And they will give you the skills. And they will teach you to treat women with respect. And that puts you so far ahead of so many other men. So it's like, once you're in the Hasanabi orbit, you're not falling out of that, right? You just aren't. I remember my female roommate sent me down once and then told me the reason women were texting back was because I used to only wash my sheets once every 6 months. Oh no. She got you good. There was a recent poll online about which body type people thought was hotter, and men got mad that women didn't pick the type that men thought they wanted. Okay, let me just talk about the body type shit. You are not dating women. You date a woman. I'll say this again. You are not dating women. You date a woman. Okay? So there are women. There is a woman for every type. Women are just like men. They have lots of different strokes for lots of different folks. You don't have to appeal to all women. Yes, there are some traditional ways of being. Like, for example, Hassan is probably considered hot by like a lot of people. So his pool that he can fish in is a lot bigger. All right? He could date a lot more people than you might be able to. But there are billions of people on the planet, and there are probably hundreds of thousands of people you could date. You're never going to date them all, okay? So stop focusing on shit like that. Focus on maximizing your potential, focusing on living as authentically for yourself, and look for someone who vibes with that. You don't date women, you date a woman. It's not that hard. That's why they get so mad at me. Like with Hassan, they could explain away Hassan having women and dating women and being successful with women by just going like, look at him. When somebody's like me, they have to throw on the Mike is a simp or an incel or whatever, even though they know it's not the case, because they're trying to shame you, because a lot more people look like me than look like Hassan. And like, this is like very, very simple shit. It's very, very simple shit, because becoming Hassan is unattainable for most people, but getting a girlfriend is not.
What are the background checks? That was pretty, thorough. And we have, as Chinese students, some of us work here, some of us, pay tuition to get here. We paid a lot of things, taxes, like federal, state, sometimes even like, social security that we may never benefit from. Right? We have contributed a lot to U.S. scientific research, education, and economy, and yet we are currently the one facing uncertainty. So, if the U.S. is sending this kind of message to us Chinese international students that we're not welcome, people will stop coming. And we actually have seen that people have dropped their interests by some polls, that they will not come to the U.S. for studying and contributing to the scientific research. So if that happens, as you said, the next breakthrough in artificial intelligence, next cancer cure, or next Nobel Prize even, it will happen somewhere else. So I think it's really bigger than about immigration. It's about whether the U.S. wants to lead in science, tech, and education, or it wants to give it up. So we're not asking for any kind of special treatment. We're simply asking to be treated equally, and we want to keep doing the work that benefits everybody.
What's your message to other international students who may be considering or aspired to come and study here in the U.S.? Is it worth it?
Looking back, I feel like it's still worth it. I've met many of my friends in here. I've met people from all over the world, and I have conducted important research with humanitarian negotiators. I've conducted important research with doctors and lawyers. I have, this education experience is what makes America great. And I think that people who are considering, now is the time of uncertainty, but I think these things will pass eventually, I think. There were similar policies targeting us in the past, but it all, went smoothly. Hopefully this time will still be the case. So my suggestion to my fellow, maybe Chinese students, I think, is be cautious, but still open to the idea of coming to the U.S. to experience this amazing education system.
Well, thank you for sharing your thoughts with us and your experience. Aline Ma, appreciate your time, and best of luck to you. Congratulations on your degree.
Americans don't realize how badly brain drained this is going to f them in 5 to 10 years. Yeah, no more Chinese Hasan heads.
Nazism will be killed by leftism, or will kill humanity. I mean, yeah.
Israel has ramped up its attacks on civilians. You have Israeli officials openly saying now that they're targeting civilian infrastructure. I mean, obviously, they have already targeted all civilian infrastructure in Gaza in terms of buildings, but and it's been quite clear they've been doing this for a long time, but they're now explicitly saying they're going after nurses and doctors and aid workers and EMT.
The misleading question about 1/5 Harvard foreign students. Chinese people also make up 1/5 of the entire planet, so 1/5 of foreign students at Harvard is spot on. Yes. Who gives a like? It's one of those things where I feel like just me having to explain it is like frustrating, and like this is where I start to rant, and I start to look like an arrogant asshole, and I apologize. But I need a moment here to recover, or I'm going to like have an aneurysm. So I'm recovering by complaining. So you guys are going to have to listen to this complaint. This is one of those circumstances where the question is so fucking stupid on its face that it actually makes me mad that anybody could be tricked by it at all, and how little thinking people actually do. It is Harvard University is supposed to be the most elite university in the world, or the top 5 at the very least, that attracts talent from all over the fucking planet to come to America and advance the frontier of knowledge, right? Like, that's the whole point of Harvard. And being like, 1/5 of foreign students are from the largest populous country in the world. Oh my God. It's like, can I think about that for 2 fucking seconds? That question should never be asked because it's dumb on its fucking face. What, you think they're bringing bad Chinese students to the US? Like, who gives a shit if it was every foreign student? Who fucking cares? Like, if they are qualified and they are advancing human knowledge, I want the best students from China to come here. Are you stupid?
They are now unabashedly sort of embracing the genocide. You hear some former Israeli politicians and officials calling it genocide. They're accusing Netanyahu of going off the rails, as it were. Of course, very conveniently ignoring the fact that polls in Israel now show the general population is in favor of ethnic cleansing. They're in favor of the brutality that their government is engaging in. And during his trip to the Middle East, Trump apparently got some pressure from some of the Arab leadership. Doesn't seem like much, though, but enough for him to say there should be food going in. Israel said, okay, we will send some food aid in, insisted on being control of the program. The number of trucks that they brought in, not even woefully insufficient. I mean, clearly just for show. They barely reached any of the people there. And this is a picture of crowds at an aid distribution site.
Yeah. So, I mean, they initially had, just after that visit with Trump, let in like something like half a dozen trucks, which was basically a troll. It was to say
it's like literally 1% of what they need on a daily basis.
And Ben Gvir was saying, or maybe it was Smotrich saying, this is literally just for
show,
optics. Yeah.
Yeah. There was mockery. It was about, haha, we'll give you a taste. And then there was more backlash. And then now this effort has ramped up for the United States and Israel to control humanitarian aid that's going into Gaza via something called the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which has been decried by the United Nations as not essentially a sincere effort to get aid in and basically using food as a weapon of war. And then you see images like this. So there are still crowds of people in Gaza still desperate for food. So even if the United States, via their military contractors, are handing it out, people are going to flock to it, and they're being fenced in. What does this image, like, seriously, what does this image remind you of?
It's like cattle. And the head of the executive director of the Humanitarian Foundation stepped down just yesterday, I think it was, when I think even for his perspective, it became clear that this is just a mechanism in which the military is going to start to it's some type of honeypot or pick people off. We're unclear.
Do you remember that there were in the past accusations that Israeli drones had
Is this Mike merch? Because we need some Mike was right showing up in the interviews like that one. We do have some initial designs for Mike was right. Hold on. Let me see if I have an initial design from Mike was right, and I will show it to you if we hit 100 subs. I will show it to you if we hit 100 subs. If we're not hitting 100 subs, like, what the fuck is the point?
been playing in Arabic cries of help me. Maybe this was a year or so ago, to draw Palestinians out so that they could kill them. This is a bit of a version of that, where it seems like this is a honeypot, as you were saying, to get Palestinians in one place and corral them for slaughter. And Jeremy Scahill reported this morning that there's already been a report of a Palestinian who's been kidnapped when they were going to pick up boxes of food. And Al Jazeera was reporting that there's been gunfire, presumably from the Israeli side, with at these aid checkpoints. So we still have inadequate information, but it stands to reason that given it was, I think, 2 resignations now from this Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, that basically they're
no one wants this on their resume.
Right. That this is not a sincere and earnest effort to get food to people.
And remember, Wood made it clear when he took on this project, that this was not going to be a mechanism to ethnically cleanse Gaza, and now he's resigned.
The Flower Massacre.
But
yeah, right.
Listen to this complete left-wing nut job where she gets on and talks about how what's actually going on in terms of the humanitarian aid. I give you Cindy McCain, former or wife, I should say, of the late neocon John McCain.
Catastrophe occurs. Your organization announced at least 15 of your trucks were looted when they entered southern Gaza en route to bakeries. Israel has consistently said that the looting is being carried out by Hamas. Have you seen evidence that it is Hamas stealing the food?
No, not at all. Not in this round. Listen, these people are desperate, and they see a World Food Program truck coming in, and they run for it. This doesn't have anything to do with Hamas or any kind of organized crime or anything. It has simply to do with the fact these people are starving to death. And so we will continue to go in. We will continue to go in with food and the kinds of supplies that we need to help the bakeries operate and make sure that we can continue to do that and hopefully be able to do more of it. But again, we can't do this unless the world community puts pressure on this. We can't be allowed to sit back and watch these people starve to death with no outside diplomatic influence to help us. These poor souls are really, really, really desperate. And, having been in a food riot myself some years ago, I understand the desperation very well.
Well, 5 days ago, Prime Minister Netanyahu vowed to take control of all of Gaza, which seems to be a shift from going in, carrying out raids, and then withdrawing.
No, it doesn't.
We've seen the Pope speak out. We've seen the leaders of France, of Canada, of the UK calling the cutting of aid egregious. Netanyahu said criticism like that is feeding Hamas and really feeding anti-Semitism. What do you make of that pushback from him, that criticisms of the state are feeding hate?
What I do know is they're not feeding people. And
this is Cindy fucking McCain. Cindy fucking McCain.
The most important part of this is that's what we're supposed to be doing. I'm very grateful for anyone, the Pope, any of the folks that did shout out and say, listen, we need to get more in. But I can't tell you as to exactly what Netanyahu's thinking or anything else. What I do know for a fact is that we need food to get into Gaza to avoid an utter catastrophe.
We already know thousands have starved to death. You just need to see the images of the children.
I mean, honestly, like at this point, what can you even say? Oh, did someone give subs? Let's go, Baker Dude. For okay, all right. Listen, chat. It's been a good week. If we don't, okay, here's where we're at. We'll do our sub goal. It's been a decent week for the subs. If we could hit currently we're at 7,032. If we could hit 7,069, I will show you the initial design. If you enjoy this content, the only way it will continue to succeed is if you support it by subscribing at tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3 sub. I forgot to shill. I don't even really feel like shilling. It is what it is.
That are,
if you guys don't want to see it, it's not a big deal either. I don't care. A rabbit child,
half of their head is blown off. Then some of them are just completely emaciated. It's good that the news is starting to pick up on this, because this quote, it just shows that the Israelis don't take human life seriously. They say, this is a top Israeli official. We are fighting human animals and we act accordingly. We are imposing a complete siege on Gaza. There will be no electricity, no food, no water, no fuel. Everything will be closed.
Was that Gallant, like early?
Oh, right. That was 2 days after October 7th.
Yeah.
So everything that it sounds like Netanyahu's not earnest about not wanting to ethnically cleanse the Gaza Strip. That sounds like they actually are interested in starving these people to death,
maybe
killing
the students
them all.
Were right.
Maybe just have some sort of reflection on this. But as you know, with the Iraq war stuff, it seems like many of our members of the media will just go about unscathed after just completely midwifing this genocide.
Oh, and then 2 or 3 years later, there'll be some type of mild mea culpa. And, you know, we're going to need to see that, I think, with politicians as well, or we will, I imagine. Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.
Holy shit! We have a hype train going on, chat. We are dangerously close to the sub goal. We are at 7,048. 7,048. So if we hit 7069 or we hit 100, we'll do it. We even take phone calls. Oh yeah, that's a lie. Mortal Nightwolf, thank you for the 12 months at tier 2. Let's fucking go. Chat, don't forget the top sub gifter and the top bit donor get the conductor badge. So for as little as 200 bits, you can get it. Hey Mike, if you want a good laugh at the expected cowardice of right-wingers, there's a guy on TikTok that goes by Ray Spar that challenged leftists to a fist fight on TikTok. He has spent the following days blocking everyone accepting his challenge, including women in a weight class below his. Fetterman went on a 3-day luxury $36,000 visit to Israel. This should absolutely be criminal. This is a criminal bribe. If somebody gave you $36,000 in cash, you'd be in the fucking Leavenworth prison. How the fuck is this okay? Oh, well, I just took it in the form of 4-star hotels and luxury flights. Is social credit capped at 49.9? I need to figure out something to do with my social credit points. I really do need to do something with that. Hama Patra, thank you for the 10 tier 1s, chat. Oh, we're getting there. We're getting there. We're getting there, chat. We're at 70-60. 70-60. We're so close. We're so close. Why are they bribing Fetterman? They're not. Okay, he's eating the entire dick. You don't understand bribes. The purpose of bribes isn't just to get the person you're bribing. It's to let everybody who's willing to accept bribes know that you're a briber. So everybody who's willing to accept it starts to lean towards Israel so they can get the bribes. All right. It's not just about the person you directly give money to. It's about telling everybody that if you play ball, you'll get rewarded and you'll get boosted. That's how the mafia works. That's how these criminal organizations work, is it's carrot and the stick, right? You don't just beat people with the stick, right? You don't just beat people so that they're bleeding out of the corner of their mouth. You also say, if you go over this way, you'll get fed. All right, chat. It says we're at 70. Okay, it looks like we hit the sub goal. It looks like we hit the sub goal. So, and it looks like we hit 69 as well. Let's fucking go. All right. So, initial design for Mike was right. Where the fuck is it? Initial design for Mike was right. Now be gentle. Cosmos84, thank you for the 3 months of tier 1. This is the initial design. Feel free to critique it. I wanted it to be more simple, you know. It has a little bit of like drop shadows. I don't know if you can see it. Nice, clean, simple. You just gave someone the socialist tramp stamp. That's right. Who's Mike? Okay, dude. More contrast on the drop. True. That might be a good idea. Why roses? Since the 1880s, the red rose has been a symbol of socialism. The origin of the rose as a symbol of socialism relates to its association with the color red. Since at least 1848, red was associated with socialism. Following the French Revolution of 1848, the socialists pushed to have the revolution's red flag be designated the national flag. The Republicans, however, prevailed, and the French tricolor flag remained the national flag. The provincial government, as a compromise, decreed that, as a sign of rallying and as a remembrance of recognition for the last act of the popular revolution, members of the provisional government and other authorities will wear the red rosette, which will also be placed at the flagstaff. During the Paris Commune in 1871, the red flag solidified its link with socialism when it flew as the flag of the communards' short-lived government. Following the collapse of the Paris Commune, German Chancellor Bismarck, out of fear of the growing strength of the socialists in Germany, had Parliament passed the anti-socialist laws to suppress the activities of the Social Democratic Party. As part of the anti-socialist laws in 1878, the display of emblems of the Social Democratic Party were banned. To circumvent the law, Social Democrats wore red bits of ribbons in their buttonholes. These actions, however, led to arrests and jail sentences. Subsequently, red rosebuds were substituted by the Social Democrats. These actions also led to arrests and jail sentences. The judge ruled that in general, anyone has the right to wear any flower as suits their taste. But when socialists as a group wear red rosebuds, it becomes a party emblem. Due to the anti-socialist laws which banned social democratic activities, hundreds of socialists were fined, imprisoned, or exiled from Germany. Subsequently, the German exiles spread the red rose symbol of socialism across Europe and to the United States. The socialist Johann Most was one of the most German socialist exiles who first went to England and then later the United States and carried the red rosebud symbol with him. The red rosebud was worn on his lapel in 1887 during speeches he gave in support of 8 individuals convicted in the Haymarket affair and a sign of socialist solidarity. Similarly, wearing of a red flower, such as a red carnation or rose, became common during the commemoration in France at the Communards Wall, which remembered the victims of the collapse of the Paris Commune. By the 1910s, the red rose was universally identified as a symbol of the socialist movement. There you go. Anyway, now you know. Maybe a cursive or more flowy font. The current one looks too much like impact font. Fair. I really like the subtle designs personally. I like that most Hasan merch doesn't say Hasan on it. Something that's 99% social is a little hint to this community, but less overt could work well. Hell yeah, dude. Well, thank you everybody for supporting the stream. And I'm gonna call it there because I have a doctor's appointment. Woohoo! I haven't gone to the doctor since I don't remember. I don't remember. So thank you so much for all your support. I appreciate all of you. I will see you all very soon. And no fasting for blood work. Whoops. Anyway, thank you so much, chat. Not all blood work. Yeah, I don't think they told me to do that. Anyway, thank you so much, everybody. I'll see you all tomorrow. Stay safe out there. Solidarity forever, my friends. And make sure you're out there on the YouTube. We have a new post. A new YouTube video.